I want to call this meeting of the Board of Directors to order. And we got somebody a little late up from lunch. I want to welcome you to your POA Board's monthly meeting. Today, the Board will wrap up their business for 2021. So thanks to you for attending, whether in person or via our live stream. And just a quick reminder about our process. As the Board works through each agenda item, I'll ask for Board comments and questions first. Once that is complete, I will ask for comments or questions from those in attendance or those on the live stream. If an item is to be voted on, there will be a request for a motion and a second from the Board, followed by Board discussion. Prior to the actual vote, I will ask for audience comments. To facilitate audience participation, I'll ask that you step to the podium, identify yourself, and use the microphone so your comments can be picked up on the live stream. Comments from the live stream participants will be relayed to those in the room by the POA communications personnel. When we get to the part of the meeting titled Other on the agenda, I will first ask board members if they have any other non-agenda items to discuss. Once that is completed, I will ask members of the audience if they have other items that they wish to address to the board. One other announcement. I'm pleased to announce that an important event occurred this morning. We completed the deal with CCI. We'll actually probably close tomorrow with the payment of the funds. We are now in control of all developer rights for our community and have acquired assets that are important to our future. I want to thank the POA staff members who worked so hard on this deal and my fellow board members for their diligence in bringing it home. On a personal note, I'm presiding over my last meeting as board president today. Thank God. I want to thank my fellow board members for allowing me the honor of leading the board, but 2 years is more than enough, especially considering some of the challenges we've faced in the last 2 years. I have 2 years left on my term. During that time, you can trust that I will serve faithfully and with the same enthusiasm that I came to the board with 4 years ago, always striving to make Tellico Village the best that it can be. With that, let's get started. I need a motion to approve the November 17th, 2021 TVPOA Board meeting minutes as presented. Pat?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? The vote's 7-0. The next agenda item is the CEO's operation report. Earlier this year, we asked the CEO to do a full quarterly operations report to the board. And additionally, we asked that he give an update to that report each month between the quarterly reports. Today's report is an update since November 17th. So, Winston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Merry Christmas, everyone. Start with finance and admin. This month, net income was very good again at $5.7 million. Outstanding job. Our cash is sitting at a very strong $13.2 million, and operations cash is at $4.8 million. Kevin will give a lot more details of the finances and the position we're in, but financially, very, very, very strong in that area. ACC through November, ACC has permitted 346 single-family homes. At their next meeting, when I last checked, they have 15 permits that were coming up at their next meeting. That would put them at somewhere around 360 permits for 2021. The next closest year, when I look back in the records, was 2005. We did 252. So we have beaten that record by at least 110 or 114 permits. So very active and shows very good signs in a lot of different areas. The POA. ACC's also approved a 327 miscellaneous permits. So at this pace, it's easy to say that we're going to beat the record of homes permitted in the history of the Tellico Village. So we now have over 5,046 single-family and multifamily units, homes, and that equates to almost or a little over 10,092 as population in the village. Just Coincidentally, the two biggest neighborhoods that we have in Tulco Village is the Tokwa neighborhood and the Tanasi neighborhood, and they comprise about 2,400 of our 5,000 homes. In Public Works, that's a department that doesn't have very sexy metrics, but that is a very vital and very important department in the POA. Clayton Taylor's given me a laundry list of bullet points of things that they have worked on, have installed, have changed, have fixed, have modified, so forth and so on. A few of the key points I want to make: leaf maintenance in all areas is in full swing. That's a very busy, and when you think about it, we have 30-plus years of growth in the village, 30-plus years of trees growing in size, magnitude, and the number of leaves they grow, of property owners that want their leaves picked up when once they just fell and Mother Nature disposed of them in a natural sense. So we are very busy in that area. In Land and Streets, they have reworked some drainage on some roadways, trying to get rid of the riprap and turn it into a mowable, more natural drainage flow area using grass causeways instead of riprap. The Tanasi dock is being installed as we speak. They're getting ready to lease those out. Sewer leaks, for those that keep up with utilities, we've had 28 in the month. Year to date, we have had 304 that have required maintenance and fixing. Water leaks for the month was 8. Year to date was 193. And as we get into the cold season and ground starts to freeze and heave, we'll see an uptick in the water leaks that will happen. You'll see that happen every year. In HR, our HR manager, who was here for 2 months, resigned. We have current openings, 5 in golf maintenance, 1 in public works, and as I mentioned, 1 HR manager. In marketing, this is an area that I find very interesting because it kind of gives me a barometer of the health of the village and the activity of the village and the desirability of people looking at us for possible places to relocate. Year to date, total Welcome Center traffic, this is all people that has come in and out of the building out there and visited, was 8,186 year to date through November. At this time last year, naturally it's going to be much less than that, 6,700 because of the COVID. But in 2019, before the COVID, the number was 8,771. So we're not quite back to normal, but hopefully in 2023 the traffic will pick back up. Total marketing visits, on the other hand, are up significantly from 2019. Year to date, we've had 6,536 marketing visitors. Last year at this time was 4,095. And likewise, pre-COVID in 2019, the November year-to-date number was 4,906. So we are well ahead of where we were in 2019, even before the COVID effect took place. So the marketing group is doing an outstanding job of bringing interest into the village. Discovery request was 1,042. Completed visits through November of this year was 737. So that's going to be 737 couples come into the village and actually take a tour with our Discovery team and see the village. Compared to last year at this time was 500, and in 2019 it was 637. So we are 100 better than where we were this time, 2019. POA lots closed year to date, 291. This time last year, 140, and in 2019, 81. Now, Steve will find this next point very interesting, being a numbers man, so please get your pencil ready, Steve. That's a total of 512 lots that our marketing department has generated and sold, and these were lots that were sitting in the non-production category as far as I'm concerned. So you take the total of the last 3 years, and the projected revenue they'll generate next year is going to be $950,000. Those were lots that we did not have anything producing on them in 2012, 13, 14, etc. So for the marketing group, congratulations, appreciate that, and it's very beneficial to the POA. In the rec world, the clay tennis courts have been closed for the season, and that's because of the frost heave that takes place on that. Simon has created a opportunity in the Kahiti neighborhood for TOC to do their injury assessments over there, much like is done in the Wellness Center. The numbers in membership are trending up. Household memberships are at a 1,006 number. At the beginning of the year, coming out of the COVID, we had 723. So Simon's done a good job building our numbers back. The budget for November was 739, so he's far in excess of that. Individual memberships for November are sitting at 626. At the start of the year, it's 505, and the number that was budgeted there was 465. So the usage and memberships of the rec world is getting back to normal. In the golf world, they had another great month. Golf has had a great year. The golf rounds remain strong. They have eclipsed 100,000 rounds. Talking to Chris yesterday, and with the November and days like, with December and the days like today, we will probably hit around 107,000 rounds. This is the most golf ever played in Tellico Village in its history. Business-wise, golf revenues exceed budget by 700,000. Expenses are under budget by 56,000. And a lot of that expense gain was expense better than budget was due to a gain recognized in our golf cart transaction. But golf's doing a great job. Chris, golf community, pass along to them the great work they're doing. And I think it's safe to say, regardless of what happens in December, it's going to be an outstanding golf year. Now, Chris also gave me $20 to put in a selfless plug for golf merchandise sales. It's Christmas. They've got a lot of very good-looking merchandise over there. So for those of you that are scrambling around and looking for last-minute gifts, please consider running to the pro shop and buying something and supporting your POA merchandise. And I think my last report, Mr. President, is on food service. As we expect and we see in every November, the Tokwa and Tanasi clubhouses have slowed down a little bit because of changing weather and outdoor activity. Tokwa November sales were at 69,000. Year to date, Tokwa has exceeded $1 million in sales. Probably will do another 50 or so thousand in December. Just for the record, before we demolished the old Tokwa clubhouse and we were running operations out of Tokwa there, we would see numbers in the sales category of $400,000 to $500,000. So with the advent of the increased size and the facility there at Tokwa, you see more utilization taking place. Tanasi sales, Tanasi Clubhouse, 65,000 for November. Year to date, just a little shy of 1.1 million. Yacht Club had a strong month with the Christmas and holiday season, but it will slow down considerably after December the 16th. I guess everybody's Christmas parties and festivities will start to slow down then. But the November Yacht Club food and beverage sales are 140,000. Year to date, just a little under 1.4 million. And that was versus last year at this time, it was about 900,000. So, Yachts Club doing good. November of 2019, for those that want to compare non-COVID to non-COVID or semi-non-COVID, November of 2019 was 1,350,000. So it's, you know, given the hardships that we've encountered with employees, food service staffing, and with the supply chain, they still have exceeded 2019 food service sales. Kahiti, which is the one restaurant where the POA is running that operation, is doing very well. Some of the best food service sales that operation has ever had. At the Keedy Clubhouse, they're running a $43,000 subsidy, but that's still $60,000 better than what was budgeted for their operation. When you look at food service, you have to consider that we are running a contractor basis for 3 of our 4 restaurants, and we have the responsibility of operations and so forth. And on the food service side, when you look at our departments of food service side, we're still $250,000 better than budgeted because of increased sales, improvements in that number, and in our managing the expense line. So food service is running very good. And that was my last department. Are there any questions about the various departments?
Any questions for Winston?
You can buy pickleball stuff at the Toco Clubhouse too, can't you?
You sure can.
I thought you could.
Thank
Steve?
you.
Yeah, Winston, you may want to give the property owners an update on where you are with the water and sewer studies.
The water study has been turned in to Clayton and the Public Works group, and they are reviewing that and drawing their conclusions and working on that. And the sewer study is to be completed and turned in, I believe Clayton said, this week. So those are 2 major studies that have one wrapped up and one is in its final stages to be wrapped up this week. Thank you, Steve.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay. With that, we'll move on to continuous improvement. Mitzi?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As Winston said, Merry Christmas. I think this is one of my favorite times of year. I do enjoy the holidays, so I hope each of you have a wonderful holiday coming up. What we've done today, I've put together a high-level summary of CI. Of course, we'll have our annual presentation momentarily. But this is not all of the projects that each of the managers have turned in. This is just a hand-picked few from various departments. I've actually asked Carla, she's going to give us an example at the end of my presentation regarding a Help Spot ticket that she's recently submitted. But first, let's go right into Public Works, and I'll be quick on these. I know everybody's excited about seeing the end-of-year presentation. But some of the things that Public Works has done this year, they've reevaluated the process of installing the electrical dock pedestals. By bringing this in-house, that saved us $15,000. They have begun the installation of the ultrasonic meters with the Smart Earth technology to begin the new meter read system throughout the village. To date, this has proven also to reduce the meter reading, which would be the man hours and the vehicle hours. The full implementation will begin in Kahidi in 2022. They changed the HA5 application to PMM asphalt sealers and changed from overlaying the back part of the Kahidi Trail to repair and seal. Again, this is not all. The board will be given at the end of the year, probably by Friday, the board will be given the entire list of all the CI projects. And how this works is every year I sit down with the CFO, and Kevin Ellsworth and I sat down last week, and we determined what is actually real dollar savings and what are savings that might be just like the one where I noted that it was man hours or vehicle hours. So there was no real dollars associated with what our presentation will show you today. I've tweaked the recreation department, and now what I want to show you is just some highlights of the projects that they've had throughout the year. Again, this is not all of Simon's projects. We just kind of handpicked some that we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. Lindsay Allison, many of you know her who use the recreation facility. She is certified as a trainer to actually certify others in CPR and first aid. And so we used her and actually certified all of the instructors and other POA employees in-house versus using an outside contractor. That was a proven savings for Simon of $780. Created a new 1.5 mile trail built to professional standards that connected the wellness center system, and he used volunteers and himself, Simon did. Again, that average cost to pay to have the trail built would be about $26,000. And again, that it may not be, as a matter of fact, that one is not one of the considerations in the real dollars that we've put in there, but it was a good project that I wanted to highlight for Simon and his team. Those are just the type of things that these managers do on a daily basis in order to, help the village. created a well-liked and appreciated swing amenity overlooking the wellness complex and the Cumberland Mountains. Not sure if anybody has seen that. This was done through the Kahiti Chain Gang, paid for by Timeless Teleco. The cost was $1,200, but would have been $8,000 had they sourced it out. So again, kind of a cost avoidance, but just wanted you to kind of get an idea of some of the projects they have going on. We've spoken in the past about the Boy Scout Eagle Project, where they had the picnic tables built. Simon has created new Zoom videos for members to participate in classes remotely during the pandemic. Those have been very successful. You know, that's one thing that we do say, a lot of this was caused due to the pandemic, but now people realize, wow, that's so nice and efficient, and, you know, it's better for me. I don't have to leave my home, and so a lot of people utilize that from their house. We have continued with offering group fitness classes in 45-minute increments, which now provides twice as many class opportunities for members. Before I go to the next slide, if you'll just leave it here, because my next slide are some recent awards that I was handing out to some of the employees. I wanted to actually defer the rest of my presentation to Carla Johnson. One thing I've been updating on the entire year to each of you is the HelpSpot ticketing system. Just a great project that we implemented. That actually, the first ticket was submitted on October the 7th of 2019. It wasn't live to the village at that time, but the HOA was presented with the website that they could go to, and we asked them to use this ticketing system as a trial-based period. September of 2020, the HelpSpot ticket actually went live, our system that we use, and tickets to date, we've received 2,685 tickets. So I think it's no secret that it is a well-used system, and so I'd like to defer to Carla. She was going to give an example of what she has experienced recently with our HelpSpot ticket system.
Sorry, I'm going to make sure my mic was on. If you've ever contacted me about any kind of an issue in the village, you will have heard me say, you should fill out a HelpSpot ticket. And I think there's probably some faces in here who I've said that to. So I actually had a situation come up, and I thought, you know, I could call Clayton or somebody at the POA office, but I think I'll just test my theory and see if I'm giving good advice. So I got my water bill for October, and it was a mere $356.10. So I was like, my September bill was $65, and I was irrigating, and my October bill is $356. Something might seem just a tad off. So I got out my went to the link and filled out a HelpSpot ticket, and I was able to upload a picture of the bill. If you guys have, how many in here have filled out a HelpSpot ticket? Awesome. So, you know, there's a chance where you can upload, you know, documents or images, whatever you need to help. So I uploaded a picture of the bill, said, I think something's off. And so they came right out the same day, checked my meter, ended up replacing it with the new ultrasonic meter, and said they were going to send the old one in for testing. And found out, of course, that the meter was bad. So the good news is we weren't wasting 56,000 gallons of water. We just had a bad meter. And so then, you know, we went through all the steps, and they told me everything that they were doing, that the meter was tested, the meter was bad, this was the adjustment to my bill, and closed it out. So it worked great. And Stella in the billing department called my husband, and he actually sent me a text and said, a very friendly woman from the POA called and said what our new bill was. So it works. So continue to use it, and if anybody says to you they're having an issue, they have a question, they have whatever, encourage them to go to the website. And the beauty of it is you don't have to log in to the website. Just go to the TVPOA.org website or TelicoVillagePOA.org website, and it's in the footer of every page. So you can just scroll down to the bottom, click on the link, and fill it out. And that way there's a record of it, and you get emails updating you on it. You get a key where you can go in and check on the status of your request at any time. And it works really well. So kudos to the staff and everybody who worked on that to make it happen. I think it's a really good system.
Thank you. So what I want to do next, we're about to go into some additional slides that show you some recent awards that were handed out at an employee event. And actually, the majority of the board was there. The board members were able to see these people get their awards in person. But before I go to that, again, I wanted to reiterate that each of the board members will be receiving a full list of all of the CI projects for the entire year of 2021 so that you can see, what projects per department everybody had turned in. So next is a picture, this is a employee in our Tenacity Pro Shop. Her name is Karen Sears. If any of you see her, congratulate her. But she was actually awarded the I Spy CI annual winner at the recent employee luncheon last week. And Karen created a document that is able to be used at all 3 golf courses. It saves so much time that they have actually been documenting that. And Casey Flanagan actually called me, and I asked him to send it in writing. And of course, I see Chris Sykes in the back. He can vouch for this as well. But what the savings that it has helped the department internally with all of the Pro Shop staff, not just at Tenacity, but at Toqua and Kahidi, they have calculated that to be about $10,000 worth of savings. So congratulations to Karen. She was very surprised. She had no idea that Casey had filled out a form for her, so I think that was great that she was able to attend our luncheon. The next picture should be Charles Roffers. Many of you know him. He is also in a pro shop, and he works for Toqua. He was nominated for an annual Above and Beyond award. He had actually gone above and beyond and used a phone app that he had and gone into each of the pro shops and was able to finagle the TVs. What's funny is Lisa McCrae, who works for Beth in the marketing department, actually oversees those TVs and was unaware that he was even able to do it. But what he does is he actually goes in and all the scoring from tournaments and different leagues that go on, he can change the screens in each of the facilities right from his phone. So Lisa felt that that was just a wonderful project that he kind of took upon himself. He went above and beyond by doing this as opposed to the way they had always done it, handwrite it. And I just think that shows another just first-class employee that we have. They're constantly looking for better ways just to enhance the golf experience in general. The next and final picture, the ACC Public Works Department, both these gals, one works for Public Works. On the left, that's Trina Medlock, and on the right, that's Holly Hooper, who is in the ACC department. And each of these ladies were also awarded an Above and Beyond award, and then Trina was awarded a CI award. And again, that was held at the December employee luncheon that we recently had. Holly was recently assigned to a subcommittee that is overseeing the dock move and wait list, which Pat White's going to speak to that momentarily. And there was a lot of work given to us kind of in a little short amount of time, and Holly is just one of those go-getters. We felt like she'd gone above and beyond. She took the work home with her, has a brand new baby, and was actually doing the work in the evenings while holding her baby. And I think everyone just really appreciates that she just always goes above and beyond and makes sure the job gets done no matter what hour of day it is. And then Trina on the left actually had a project that she was working on along with our IT department with the TDS invoicing, and found some errors there and had saved the company a significant amount of money as well. So we wanted to recognize her at year end. And I'll stop talking and I'll ask the board president to meet me in the center floor. I know this is all that you've been waiting on anyway. Let me go this way. So as a team, this year we had a goal of $170,000 for the
People aren't gonna be able to hear you.
employees. I'll grab one, I guess. Sorry. So this year we had a goal for the employees to save at least $170,000 to put back into the reserve fund. And we'd like to present today with the board a check in the amount of $180,000 of real dollars.
Thank everybody for this. Thank you. We always can use this. Does anybody have any questions for Mitzi? And so the Marine Advisory Committee and a number of other people from both staff and in the village and one of our board members, headed up an objective to try to streamline this process and make it more fair. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat.
Well, thank you very much. Can you keep up? Okay. Okay. So the first slide, I'm going to take just a bit here. What is being proposed in the center, you'll say old process, new process, and I'll go down these. The application required is still the same, old and new. Valid contact information required, yes. Now, the new process I added, there is going to be extra emphasis placed on address, phone number, and email. Double checking if required. Administration fee required, yes, there will be a $50 application fee that I'll review later. List organized by doc, no change. List ranked order by oldest application first, that's still the same. Reasons for the move, it's still the same, but now we're getting into defined and specifically prioritized. Application withdrawal process or no penalty. Before it was, you may remove your name at any time, and now it's going to be allowed penalty-free only up to being offered a new slip. I'll explain that. Who defines or determines this slip applicant match? Both are the POA will call the property owner, the boat owner, and the property owner accepts and denies, so that's the same. Time limit to accept and complete the move if offered, those are the same. Number of POA attempts to satisfy the move changed. It was not defined in the current process, but will be defined and limited to 3, which again I will cover. And relationships to the wait list was not defined before, and now it will be specifically defined. If a slip is unfilled after 3 attempts from the move list, the empty slip becomes available to the wait list residents. Next, please. Here are the problems. All slips are leased, or 99% on any given month. The slip turnover, meaning the slip vacated and then released, was 65 plus in 2020, 35 plus in 2021, and we have no idea what it will be in 22. We have 179 property owners on the move list. There are 182 property owners on the wait list. The current method is to offer slip openings to a move list first, and we have no problems with that as long as there are no openings or minimal openings. Currently, we offer 3 days to decide, 3 days to move, and at 36 slips to fill at the new dock at Tenasseee. That is 216 days at worst case scenario, which means that the revenue coming in from those docks will not be available until August the 4th, 2022. So you can see that this is non-workable. Next slide, please. There are 2 groups of property owners seeking slips facing untenable delays. 182 property owners with no slip on the wait list and 179 with boats in the water that want to move. So how do we accommodate both equitably? We're adding, the POA is adding an additional dock in 2022 after we add this one currently in Tenasseee. And then in the 5-year plan, there's another one for 2023. Current process worked until this year. And the Marine Advisory Committee is advising the POAs to formalize the wait and move process in order to streamline the process and have a formal process in place for future docks. Next, please. To start the move solution, the Marine Advisory Committee formed a subcommittee to address the move list problem. There were 3 volunteers, all property owners and boat owners from the Marine Advisory Committee. That's Bob Milligan, he was the chairperson, Jeff Gino, and Lee Dantzler. There was 1 volunteer that was leasing a slip but not associated with the Marine Advisory Committee, and that's Christy Bruns. And there's 1 volunteer from the wait list that's been on the wait list for 9 months, a property owner. That's Margaret Lizardo. And I thank all of those people that are in attendance today in the audience and watching on the video. You have, well, you can imagine. They worked for a little over a month, and the number of emails that I went back and counted was in excess of 70 that did not include the meetings and the phone calls to resolve every issue that I'm going to talk about today. Truly amazing amount of work in a short period of time. Advising the group was Mitzi Lane, the POA's Chief Operating Officer. Again, Holly Hooper was involved in this, and both of them were serving as representatives to actually administering this. And then myself, I'm the board liaison to the Marine Advisory Committee. Following recommendations made by the MAC, Next, please. Okay, page 1 of the recommendations, establish a move list and procedures. Then under that, current move list will be grandfathered to the new move list. Establish a move list priority ranking, and that priority ranking is hardship is first. In other words, the only hardship considered is Monroe County boat, Loudoun County residents, and vice versa. We want to get those back together. 2 is slip size and service. That, and service being we have covered slips, powered slips, and things like that. So when you're asked to fill out the application, those are 2 priorities that you will be required to put down. And 3 is convenience request, and that is lighting, things like distance from the dock, whether it's a port or starboard exit, etc. And number 3 is establish a time frame for the old move list to the new list transition, and that was determined to be from January 1, 2022 to January 31, 22. And then establish an administration fee for move request. And next, please. Establish administrative move procedures. Establish a method to equitably satisfy the move and wait list. And then establish a written procedure, which we do not now have. Procedure reviewed and signed by the property owner applying for the move. And then we develop a new move application, which will always also be signed for. Next, please. Implementation. The following slides review the Tellico Village Common Dock move procedures. Next. And here's the eye chart. And this is why when I send this out to everybody, they all go, Pat, you got too many slides. But I learned in my career, you use big letters, black background, white letters, everybody can read it. So off we go. This is that form that I just showed you. The first paragraph in there says the Tellico Village Property Owners Association allows current common dock slip holders to request a different slip and maintains a move list to administer the process. To facilitate the process, the Marine Advisory Committee is recommending, I added that because the form says TVPOA has adopted and we haven't yet, the following policy concerning move requests. Next, please. Number 1. Current slip holders requesting a move to a different slip must fill out a move list application and submit this to the Tellico Village Public Works Department. The applicant shall ensure that the TVPOA has their current address, a valid email address, and telephone number for contact purposes. The old move list will be transitioned to a new move list. Slip holders make the transition from January 1, January 31, 22 by applying to the POA office. Slip holders who do not complete the application by January 31, 22 will not be added to the new move list. Please make sure the contact information is correct and concerned. And in our meeting with the MAC, there was a gentleman in there that said he's on the move list, wants to go to a cover dock, but doesn't want to do it anymore. Does he have to go out and fill it out? No, just let your name expire and you will not be moved to the new move list. Next, please. Number 2, a $50 administrative fee will be required at the time of application to secure a place on the move list. This fee is non-refundable except as noted below. Being self-explanatory, we have 350.
Pat, I think they're on the wrong slide.
Okay, go to number 2, please. There you go. Okay, start again. Thanks for the catch. A $50 administration fee will be required at the time of application to secure a place on the move list. This fee is non-refundable except as noted below. Being self-explanatory, there are 350 plus contacts, updates, and maintenance to keep up with. The property owners unable to complete the application in person may do so by telephone. We have people in Florida, people be on vacation. Application procedures, meaning the acknowledgement of signatures and administration fee, are in place. So when you call the Public Works Department, I'm out of town, this is my name, and then you can move right over to the new list and send a check by mail. Application and payment of the $50 administration fee must be completed by January 31st, 22. Next, please. There we go. The TVPOA move list is organized by dock site and contains the names of current slip holders requesting a move from the existing slip. Names are entered on the move list in the order of the date on which the move request application was received by the POA. And again, the old list will transition to the new list with the same date, between January 1, January 31. The dock sites are Tanasi, Yacht Club, Tugaloo, and Kahiti. Again, the old list will be transitioned to the new list in the same order of the date on the old list. Next, please. This is number 4. TVPOA will consider more move requests for the following reasons. A disparity between a slip holder's current permanent Tellico Village resident and slip location, meaning home Loudoun County but slip is in Monroe or vice versa. B and C are combined, a different slip size and or location than the applicant's current slip. Under the current move list, people put down any. You've got to specify a slip side or what that slip service is, as C says, whether it's covered, uncovered, powered, etc. And then D, personal preferences. Again, port or starboard exit, walking distance, and for whatever the reason. The first move criteria is location. The slip and slip holder are in the same county. The second move criteria is slip size and services, both B and C. Having various size slips is a priority to have the boat properly fit the slip as well as slip services. And the third move criteria are personal preferences. Move applicants will be selected in the date of the move list, location order, size and service requirements, and finally, preferences. If the available slip does not match the applicant's request, there will be no move offer made. As an example, if there is a covered dock slip that I have put my name on a move list, but I don't want a covered dock slip, and it's not documented on my move application, I will not be called. So you won't have these phone calls, multiple phone calls offering slips that you don't want anyway. If an applicant requests to be taken off the move list before being offered a slip, the $50 administrative fee will be refunded. The $50 administration fee will only be refunded if the applicant requests to be removed from the list before being offered a move. As an example, the applicant is offered a move to the slip size requested, and upon seeing the slip, refuses the move. Remember, they got 3 days. Excuse me. Then they request that their application be removed from the move list and request an application fee refund. The fee will not be refunded at that point. They've been offered the move. Okay, number 6. This is a 3-sentence paragraph. Once a slip opening occurs that the TVPOA determines meets the applicant's requested move, TVPOA will contact the applicant by email. Applicant has 3 days from that notification to confirm acceptance. If the applicant does not respond within 3 days, the applicant will be removed to the bottom of the list, and the next applicant in order will be contacted with the same offered slip. Next sentence. Next, okay. If accepted, the applicant must complete the move to the offered slip within 3 days of acceptance. If either of those timelines is not met, the applicant will be moved to the bottom of the move list, and that same open slip would be offered to the next applicant on the list. Next, please. And the last sentence is, if the applicant turns down the proposed new slip, TVPOA will make no more than 2 subsequent attempts to satisfy the move request, after which time the application will be canceled. So you got, please move, don't want it. Please move, don't want it. Please move, don't want it. That move request is canceled, and now we're going to offer that to the property owner wait list. So an open slip would be offered up to 3 move list applicants. Should the open slip be refused by the 3 applicants, the slip will be canceled. The canceled move slip will then be filled from the Tellico Village property or common dock wait list, and no more than 3 moves will be attempted per open slip. Next, please. Each slip opening will be filled one at a time. 3 attempts to fill the slip opening will cancel the slip opening, and the canceled slip opening will be filled from the wait list. There will be a sequence of 3 slip openings filled from the move list. The 4th opening will be filled from the wait list. And just so you know, the wait list offer can also be refused by that property owner, with the applicant being moved to the bottom of the wait list. With the thought being, Pat, you've got a slip. I don't want it. I go to the bottom of the list. it would have been better if I took the slip, put my name on a move list to move. At least I've got my boat in the water. Okay. After the fourth opening, the next opening will start the sequence of moves listed above. Let me refresh. The first opening goes to move list, second to move list, third to move list, and the fourth opening goes to the wait list. The fifth opening goes move list, move list, move list, wait list. And it continues that sequence of 3 moves in 1 until we fill up a dock. Here's how the startup procedure works. The first moves from county to county have already been completed, and this generated 0 available slips. There was 1 move from Kahiti back up to here. They're now on PDOC. 12 slip holders, upon learning of the new dock at Tenasseee, this was before we even started billing it, added their names to a move list to PDOC. They went to Public Works, said, we want to move to this new dock, don't even know where it is. We want to put our name on that list, and they did. These 12 will be offered a move to PDOC first. The remainder of PDOC will be filled from the wait list. That means that we have 1 on now, plus 12 is 13, minus 36 is 23 from the wait list. We'll move to PDOC and fill it up, and we start generating revenue, which in turn creates 12 openings, which starts the move list, because we have no openings. So, next, there you go. Move list changes are recommended by the Marine Advisory Subcommittee. The move list changes were approved by the Marine Advisory Committee, full committee, yesterday, December 14th, and the Marine Advisory Committee recommends approval by the POA Board of Directors. And the communications will be as follows. Presentation and recommendations at this meeting are available live and live broadcast. Video presentation and recommendations are available on Teleco Village YouTube channel. The notification of the above made through the telegram to all property owners, and the Marine Advisory Committee has committed to send emails to all slip holders, links to this presentation, and recommendations to all slip holders. And that ends my presentation.
Questions from the board?
So the bottom line, Pat, we expect these slips to be filled, since we have the new ones at PDOC, by when?
When this board makes a motion and a second and approves this, this approval goes back through Mitzi and Holly will immediately start giving those 23 people, or those 12 people, immediate move 3 days from the time they're contacted by email to move their boats. And again, some people may have winterized boats, Marty, and they can't move until spring. Call a friend, call T-Bart, Bruce in the fire department, whoever you can get to move that boat, because that is an opening that we need to start moving people into. So this starts the process. So to answer your question, as soon as we approve this, she gets back to Holly, we start the process of moving those 12 to PDOC, and then we go to January the 1st to the 31st, being wintertime. We will transition the new list and start that process February 1st. Oh, just in case. I can see Steve asking this. If I leave this meeting and run over and see Holly Hooper right now, can I get on that PDOC list? No, it's closed. Okay, all right.
Okay, I had a couple questions I asked this morning, which I'm going to ask again. Clayton, would you step to the microphone, please?
Uh-oh.
This is the person responsible for docking. So, Clayton, you've reviewed and were a participant in devising this scheme.
Scheme.
That would be plan,
Plan. There you
scheme,
go.
whatever.
That's better, plan's better.
Do you agree with it, and do you think that it streamlines your processes?
Yes, we do agree with it. We've worked diligently on this with the subcommittee with Mike, and we do feel like it will streamline things and we can make it work.
Thank you, Clayton. Now I'm going to ask the same question of Mitzi Lane.
I would say the same thing as Clayton. We were in attendance of all the subcommittee meetings and the Marine Advisory Committee, and so we're all on board. The only thing I'm not sure of is Pat cited 70 emails. I think we counted 170 emails.
Only off by 100, Pat. What the hell?
Well, that was just between committee members.
So, I'm going to ask for a motion.
Well, before we do that, I may be wrong, and so if I don't see you all, if anybody that was on that subcommittee, and I see a couple of you here, want to come up to the microphone and speak your piece, positive or negative, now's your opportunity as a property owner
Well,
to vote.
the motion should go on the table first.
Okay, I make the motion.
Okay. The motion is to approve the dock assignment / move process as presented. So Pat moves. Do I have a second? Sue seconds. Any further discussion from the board? Yes, Steve.
Yeah, as I mentioned this morning, this seems to be really complicated. And I realize that a lot of work went into it, so I'm not discounting the effort. I personally would have done it a little different by just filling the slots with people that have, property owners that have boats that want to get in the water, but that be as it may. If Mitzi, you're okay with handling this complex matrix on who does what to who when, then I'll be quiet.
And again, I appreciate what Steve's talking about, and I understand, but what the driving force and what brought this to Mac's attention was there is a process in place. It is not documented. It has just evolved. And right now, that evolution is 179 people on this one, 182 people on that one. And again, you could have a lottery or a pick the hat or just bite the bullet and make people mad and say, all of you go there, forget it. And we can't do that. You know, you've got to have an equitable, fair solution to everybody involved, and that's why it was done this way.
So any other commentary from the board? Okay, I'll open the mic to people from the committee that helped develop this. If you'd like to speak your piece, do it now. Okay.
All right. They're not saying
Well,
anything.
I'm coming to the general audience right now.
Neither one of them.
So
knows.
is there anybody on this side of the room that would like to address this issue to the board?
I just have a question.
Please step to the microphone. You can put it down.
Pull it down.
No, that's fine. Just a question about the $50 fee. I'm just curious, if you had, say you lived in Kahidi and the only slip you could get was in Tanasi, and you wanted Kahidi from day one, so you've been on this move list. Now with this process, will you now have to pay the $50 to get on the move list, even though from...
Two parts to your question.
Okay.
Right now, you've been taken care of. Everybody in Loudoun and Kahidi that were offset.
Hypothetical question.
Okay, hypothetical is all of this is all over and done and the slips are full and we're going to put in a new dock fall of this year and you've got a Kahidi here and a Loudoun County there, right? Yes, your name needs to go on that move list and you need to say, I have a hardship case that I need to move. And that will be priority one.
But it'll still be a $50 fee.
Yes.
That was my question.
Okay, other commentary from this side of the room. Yes.
When you get a dock? Or it's just a fee?
Just a quick question. Are you planning to email the people on the wait list to notify them about everything? I just don't see it.
Yes, yes, and it will be published in the Telegram, the link. It will also be from the Marine Advisory Committee. They have everybody's email. Bad storm coming, take your bimini tops down. They're sending an email to all of those people with that link of here's the change and here's what you need to do.
Okay,
And
still on
remember
this
that-
side of the room.
They gotta have it done by.
Yeah, now, Fred,
Yep.
to answer your question, one more step that you didn't cover. I see my email, it's from the Marine Advisory Committee. My boat's been winterized, I'm not going to read it. February 1st, they show up and go, hey, I heard there's a new move list. And they were 5, now they're 179. You follow?
You have to take an action.
You have to.
Pat, a question.
Notification is only going to be through emails.
Well, yeah, it'll be, so if you're on this is what Holly said. If you're on the move list and it's your turn,
Right.
Rick Thompson is going to receive an email because it's got a timestamp and a date stamp
Okay.
of when it was sent, and it's got a timestamp and a date stamp when it was returned. You've got 3 days. Otherwise, like she says, if it's U.S. mail, I got no clue.
What about phone calls?
Email first.
I understand, but is phone calls part of the process, or should it be?
We're asking for a phone number, but again, I have no documentation that I contacted you or you responded back to Holly if there's a phone call. I contacted you, Holly, in 3 days. I have no record of it. Or she says I contacted you and you didn't call me back. Emails do.
Yeah, but emails are also missed. So the process, I'm not
And-
sure the
and
process
Rick-
is solid.
And we had a long debate about this, too. You know, there's a lot of people on this list that are not going to read their telegram. They're not going to watch this video. They did not attend this meeting. They're not going to open the email from the marina. And there are 644 plus 36 slips. We're not going to go door to door.
Okay,
We've got to learn how to communicate with one another. And there's like 5 different ways we're reaching out to communicate. And like Bruce says, somebody's got to, so get your words out to all your boating friends. If you're on a move list and you got a boat, there's
your
something
emails.
going on in this village you need to be aware of.
okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Okay, any other commentary from this side of the room? Anything from that side? Yes.
Real quick, just a comment. You also mentioned this is a very complex process. One suggestion is to process flow this with ifs, ands, or buts, so you can see where the decisions are being made, where the ifs are, but this can easily be done, taken and translated into a flow chart.
Sounds like a volunteer.
Good suggestion. Good suggestion. Yeah, there we go. Okay, anybody
All of a
else
sudden
from
he
this
says
side of
right
the
now.
room?
One more.
Just a clarification, we're currently at Tenasseee T-Dock. We're on the wait list to move to P-Dock. We've already implemented the request. Do we still pay the $50? I've not yet paid my slip fee.
No,
Is he
no,
one of
we're-
the 12?
He's one of the 12.
So we
We're-
don't
we're-
pay the 50?
No, we're going to move those people first in order to start this.
Okay.
That's going to open up 12 slips throughout the village. And then we're going to finalize, are you serious? Because see, this old move list is made up of very vague information. As an example, there's a lot of people just say, I'm at the yacht club and I want to move somewhere else, I don't care where. Well, if they've got 11 by 24 slip need, a big pontoon boat, and we give them a 10 by 20, they're not going to take it. They shouldn't take it. So that's what the new list covers. But the openings have got to be generated before we start the move, and that's where the 12 come in.
Okay. And then just a clarification that I just thought, all of the new slips at P-Dock are 11 by 21, correct?
11 by 24.
24.
Yeah,
11 by
they're all
24.
double slip, double
yeah.
well pontoon slips.
And then lastly, when we put in the move request, we specified odd number because we really like port entry. Do I need to make a correction for that?
No, when she sends you the email, if you've already put it on there, we're going to try our best, or she's going to try her best to honor what that was before she goes to the wait list to say, here's yours. They're just going to be assigned.
And when the email comes out, you'll say P11 or P13
To
is
them.
the slip you're being offered.
No, more than likely, you're going to get an email to say, give me a call, or
Oh.
I'm going to honor your slip. Because you're on a move list and you made a specific size and requirement. So we're going to honor that, just like the new list. But then when we get to the wait list February 1st to fill up all of these, if any more slips are there, those people are going to take whatever we can offer because they're the ones that are left available.
But you are going to identify when you say, David, got a slip for you, you'll say what slip it is so that I can check.
Yeah, I might call you Stan because I forgot your name, David, but yeah.
David, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Other? Please identify.
Oh, Margaret, she was on the committee,
Yeah,
everybody booed
yeah,
Margaret.
please identify yourself.
I've been on the wait list forever.
Pull it down, Margaret.
Please
Hello.
identify yourself.
I'm Margaret Lizardo, and
Thank
I've
you.
been on the wait list, and I was part of the committee, and it is kind of confusing, but it's going to make it easier, especially for Holly and it's more fair. This question is for Mitzi because it came up as one of the questions about communication. I understood that during the leasing agreement, the yearly leasing agreement, that this was going to be communicated during that process as well. So not just an email, but through the
Right,
leasing.
that's what I was trying to get to, Pat. This initial push, the
Yeah.
letters, the initial push, every year, the leases renew, and so Holly has a special communication piece that will go out to everybody.
Perfect. Just wanted
informing
everybody-
everybody that currently has a slip.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then as far as me being on the wait list forever, 9 months, and seeing no hope of being on it for another year, it's good to know that once the move list moves, then that's going to open up spaces for me eventually. So I think that eventually I'll get on more quickly this way, and it will take less time. And that's why I was happy to be part of this committee, and thank you for inviting me, Pat.
Well, I thank you for your
Yeah,
service.
thank you,
Thank you.
Margaret. It was a pleasure working with you.
Other comments from that side of the room? Okay, so there being no further comment from the board, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor of approving the motion? Any opposed?
He just wants to do it a different way.
So the vote,
I like to see my name in the minutes.
well, and you'll see it. The vote is 6-1 to approve the new dock assignment and move process. And may God have mercy on your soul. Okay, so the next item is the strategic land purchase in Kahidi. And to start that, I'm going to ask for a motion to take from the table and reconsider the motion relative to the Kahidi land acquisition.
So moved.
Carla, I'll need a second. Pat? It's a preferential motion, so I'll call for an immediate vote. All in favor? 7-0. So the motion was to authorize the POA's chief executive officer to engage in negotiation to purchase an 8.74-acre tract of land adjacent to the Kahidi neighborhood entrance designated as parcel number 048A B002.00 for a price not to exceed the board's instructions and to report to the board the funding methodology. The final purchase agreement is to be brought back to the board for approval. That motion was originally made by Carla and seconded by Pat. So now I'll just open discussion.
Okay, you're talking about the motion that was made during the November meeting? Because the
correct.
motion made during the October meeting,
It's the same
was-
motion.
right, but it was made by me and seconded by Steve Schneider and passed 5-2. So it was brought up during the November open meeting because the funding was included in the 2022 budget as a strategic investment. And so, just to let everybody know what that funding was for, we brought it up during the open meeting. At that time, Winston brought up some other properties in the village that he felt like should be considered. And so, while that motion was being discussed, it seemed obvious to me that the other board members wanted to have more information about that overall strategy before taking that vote, which I guess in my mind, that had already been approved. So I was, a little bit taken aback by the fact that we were considering it again and voting on it again. And so for that reason, I made a motion to table it so that we could discuss it and we could figure out what was going on before we made a decision. So I actually asked Winston for a meeting so that he could share with me. He was not able to attend the October meeting, which is why he didn't weigh in on that until after the October meeting. He sent us a couple of emails and then weighed in on it during the open meeting in November. So what we asked him for was an overall, his recommendation on an overall land acquisition strategy, as he had identified 3 other parcels of land in the village that he felt like would be key location properties or for key uses in the village or in the best overall interest of Tellico Village property owners to acquire. And so we talked about those this morning. Unfortunately, I guess he and the staff have been a little bit occupied with the CCI, due diligence and getting that deal closed. So they were unable to provide us with additional information that was asked for, like the estimated fair market value for a couple of those properties and how they might fit into our overall strategy. Even so, I contend that that property, which what we're talking about, we made a whole presentation on this at the last meeting, so I apologize if you're not familiar with it, but it's 8.74 acres of property near the entrance of the Kahidi neighborhood, right off of Kahidi Trail, and it is the perimeter property which backs up to the adjacent property. Right now it's wooded, completely wooded. There is a curb cut to enter that property, which is before you get to the Kahidi Guard Shack, because originally when the plan that Cooper had for that was for that to be commercial property so that it could be accessed by people before they had to completely go inside the entrance to the Kahidi neighborhood. So it is currently on the market. It's on the market for $200,000. The amount that we had authorized Winston was up to $175,000 to negotiate a purchase price on that when we talked about it in October. So as I stated before, I feel like this very much, the purchase of this particular property is very much aligned with our strategy for the decision that we made to purchase the CCI property. And that is to avoid undesirable development on that property, to provide a buffer between the village and the adjacent property, and to continue basically to preserve the integrity and the harmony of the neighborhood and the entrance to that neighborhood. And speaking with Chris Sykes, the director of golf, he also said that is the entrance to the Kahidi Golf Course, the Kahidi Clubhouse. It's the Kahidi Community Center, which we built in 2019, is being marketed as a venue for events. So we want to really maintain that entrance and not, be at risk of having kind of an undesirable eyesore developed there, or it being clear cut and not having any buffer to the adjacent property, or looking at something that, is really not desirable to look at. So for those reasons, I feel like it definitely aligns with the strategy that we employed in making the decision with the CCI property. So, happy to hear what anybody else thinks about that, and then we can determine how to go forward.
Bruce?
Yeah, I don't know how to say this other than say respectfully disagree with you. Okay. I think that in doing this, if you go ahead and allow Winston to start negotiating that piece of property, you've kind of got your horse before your cart, or cart before your horse. And basically, you haven't really done your due diligence here. You're just telling him to go out and start negotiating. When you negotiate and you reach a price, the person you negotiate with is expecting you at that point in time. It's a done deal almost, except for doing cash and signing a contract. So I think that there's other ways to look at this. You need to look at it from a complete strategy, not just a single piece of property at a time. You need to take a look at what you can do, as we discussed this morning, to change the red book, that if you have that property, how do you keep them from, how could we legally or within our bylaw or within our controlling documents, how could we amend the red book or the blue book to say you have to maintain buffers? We haven't even looked at that yet. We've talked about it, but we haven't looked at it. So I just don't feel good at this point in time of directing our CEO to go out and negotiate for this piece of property to the point right up to where you write him a check and say, here, we bought it. Okay, you know, if we look at our strategy and we say we need to protect the village, our entrances, there's multiple entrances, as Carla has pointed out, that need to be protected. If we want to have that as our strategy, we need to look at the impact to our budget and to our reserves over the next so many years. We have a big effort on hand now of trying to build our reserves up to a point, even to the point where we're going to go do a study to find out what that number should be. Well, in doing this, if we acquire this property and then turn around and feel like we got to do it with the other properties that have, we could be into some serious big bucks, which means that we're going to delay getting to our target goal of reaching our reserves. So I just think that I'm not opposed to it in the end, if that's what it takes to protect us, but we don't need to do it individually. We need to keep an eye on that piece of property. We don't need to go out and negotiate with it right now and get right up to the point and say, okay, we negotiate for $167,000 and the person is expecting us to write a check, but then we come along and say, we don't have to buy this because we've changed the red book, and now that piece of property or any other piece of property that would be making our entrances look bad, we can shield that through whatever method that we can bring about. So I'm not saying that in the long run we won't have to do this. I'm just saying that without looking at all the strategy of what we're gonna do to protect our interests, we need to do that before we actually go out and start negotiating for individual pieces of property.
Yes, Pat.
Okay. As I spoke before, and I still firmly believe to this day, we have a unique community in Kahidi that has one entrance. I almost want to call it one primary entrance, but it's one entrance, that's all. And in order to acquire that property, my understanding is that we're doing this to control what is constructed on that property and/or how that property is used, and we wish to have complete control of that. If it was ours, property owners, then we would. So getting to what Bruce talked about, as we talked about this morning in the executive session, being able to change the red book to a large degree could help us there. But then this morning I was giving this a lot of thought, and I'm thinking, so let's start on the extreme. I want to control this property because I do not want, and my immediate vision is a Weigel's with a great big Weigel's sign up there on top of the hill that I can see coming across Niles Ferry Road. So that is the extreme. We don't want that to happen. And so then the next one would be a small shopping center with line or signage out there and traffic and all that. To a degree, we can control that. But then the next thing is, so now I'm thinking, which we also discuss on restaurants and profitability and all this stuff with the finances with the restaurants, is realistically, we have only 4 restaurants here, and only one of them I think a normal person would be willing to purchase, because it's the only one with any traffic at all, and that's Tanasi. All the rest of them are deep inside a neighborhood, would generate virtually nothing unless somebody that lived there used it. So my thought is, realistically, how likely are you going to find a Weigel's or a Pilot or a commercial shopping center on top of that hill that people are going to drive all the way from 411 down Niles Ferry or the other way from Madisonville to turn right on the Kahidi Trail to go up and turn right again? I just don't see them doing it. So the question then becomes, what type of retail operation would find it desirable? And with our current and future ACC rules and our ability, as we talked with the attorney this morning, and Steve and the group, you're about to be challenged with this, to go back to the Red Book and make it tough to the point that you have to hide or that. And which brings up the question, what would want to go up there? Well, I think that is storage. Everybody talks storage. So whether it's acceptable to us storage or somebody else owns its storage is okay as long as we control the appearance of it. And that's what we need. So next.
In light of storage, however, if the POA decided to put storage in there, we would realize the revenue from that storage. And if somebody from outside the POA put storage in there, then it would be available to anyone to use, not just people who live in Tellico Village, because we wouldn't be able to keep them from having customers for that storage. And I do have property owners. Sherry happened to be able to be here today. Sherry Lee, no, she is the coordinator of the Neighborhood Watch organization in Kahidi, and she sent me an email, which I forwarded on to the rest of the board members today about her concerns about that. But I do think that that's a fair concern. And I don't, honestly, when we changed the Blue Book significantly recently, it took us several months to do that, to get through that process. I don't know how long we can imagine that it might take to change the Red Book, but this property is on the market right now. And I did receive a phone call from a local storage company who told me they were in hot pursuit of this property. So for that reason, I feel like it's not something that we can just continue to kick the can down the road. I agree. I completely agree that there are other properties in the village that should be considered, especially on their merit, when they come available. Now, Winston suggested immediately going after a property that is, you know, his recommendation of what they would offer for that property was 2.5 times, or, you know, more than twice what we would be considering for this property. And so, you know, an argument that was given to me last month was, well, we just, you know, bid off the CCI property, but now the recommendation is to go after a property that, you know, they would recommend offering $450,000 for instead of $175,000. So I don't really see how, you know, that argument could be considered valid if, you know, those are the way, if that's the way we're going to approach this strategy.
So is the buyer aware of the fact that Kahidi Trail is a private road and we don't have to give them access through there? And the only other way is to cross another piece of property to Niles Ferry, which they don't own.
Right, they would have to get an easement from TRDA for that property, because that's TRDA property. I can tell you that what I suggested to him was that before they made any financial commitment, that they provide at least a preliminary plan to the ACC for a cursory review. But obviously, I mean, that would be up to them whether they decide to do that or not. So, and I have not had communication with them since then.
Carla,
and I don't know that.
Now, you were telling this to the current owner, or?
To the person who was interested in purchasing
Oh, I
it.
see, okay. So you explained to him about.
Right. The
about
current
private-
owner who purchased the property from Cooper is deceased. And so his kids basically are trying to sell the property.
So I just have a question, probably more for Winston than anybody else, but, you know, we just acquired the developer rights. So we do have a certain amount of protections with that for this property. And we've talked about that some here with the ACC, and the discussion this morning was tightening those up with Red Book revisions like you just mentioned, Carla. But, you know, notwithstanding how long that would take, what kind of protections do we have in place today, Winston, that would prevent something that really is not desirable going in there?
Well, in this particular tract of land, it's a what I'll refer to as a virgin tract. It's not been replatted with lots and roads and infrastructure of any kind, whereas the neighborhoods and the residential lots already have that in place. So that already exists on those lots. This lot, depending on what the developer wanted to do, they would have to engineer infrastructure, which would be water, sewer, roads, and meet our criteria, meet our specifications that would work with those systems that are in place for the Keedy neighborhood, access points and so forth and so on. So there would be a lot of additional requirements that they would have to meet in order to, get the approval of ACC and the Public Works Department and ultimately the board. It would be considerably more difficult than building a house on a lot.
Yeah, and so just so everybody understands, the revisions that we were talking about in the Red Book were primarily for aesthetics, correct? Like keeping a tree wall or something there, depending upon what got put in there.
Yes, I think that was inferred, but I believe when Kevin probably will review the Red Book, he will, if the board doesn't want him to, he won't, but he could do a more thorough and look at it from the standpoint of some of the examples that were given, and not only aesthetics, but make sure that compliance with traffic, engineering, and so forth also have to be met and considered. Because, now with this transaction we just completed, the POA is the developer and has that authority and also has that responsibility.
What would be a realistic timeline for that to happen?
For
considerable Red Book revisions to protect that?
Well, I think now that this major obstacle's been taken off of Kevin's plate with the CCI deal, he could review it and have a preliminary to the board and ACC in January. It could go through the normal processes of review and edit and consideration and probably be approved in late February or March.
So,
But I also want to remind the
like 3 times
board.
faster than the Blue Book revisions? Or 4 times faster?
That was a whole rewrite of the Blue Book.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that was a full rewrite.
I just want to make sure we're looking at a realistic timeline, because we have a piece of property that is currently on the market with considerable interest.
Well,
So you've opened lines of communication with the potential buyer. You need to tell the potential buyer that he's buying property on a private road with no other access. Yeah. And, oh, by the way, the utilities that are going to go in there, he's going to have to build them. It won't be cheap. As a matter of fact, we've already had one buyer back out of that property because of that.
Well, but that buyer wanted to put residential units in there.
That's true.
And so if you're talking about putting a gravel lot with storage on it, they're probably not planning on putting water and sewer in
We
there.
Well,
also
if he's going to
turned-
secure the lot, he's going to have to put electrical lines in.
We also turned down one request of putting a gravel condo. No, it weren't storage, it was like shop, hobby buildings.
But we have a lot in Tellico Village already, owned by that same company, who has a big gravel storage lot. So, I mean.
They just went by the ACC book and they said you have to pave it. And the person backed out because of that. So we can
No,
tell
I'm
this.
talking about right now, currently in the village.
Sure.
It was grandfathered, I'm sure. That one.
Yeah, it's down behind Sloan's.
But I'm just as concerned about the lot that we eliminated from the acquisition that we just approved, and that's the one that's sitting right on 444 that's, could be a big eyesore if the wrong thing went in there. So that was just as important to me as the one at Kahidi. I think we need to protect the village, so I'm just saying, we need to look at this in totality and not just individual pieces.
Well, one of the things that, we asked Winston to do, he reviewed the points that would be in a property acquisition strategy, and he was instructed to come back to the board in January with a full write-up and plan. So, that's on the table.
Rick, a couple other items.
Sure.
This morning, we talked about, I think, 3 other parcels inside the village in addition to the Kahidi property. What we talked about this morning, and I requested we have a set of criteria that says, here's when the board considers acquiring land that we currently don't own versus sharpshooting and taking one at a time as they appear. And as you said, he's coming back in January. Realizing this is on the market and there's concern, we're going to rewrite the red book. Another possibility we could do is possibly buy a call option on that property, which we haven't discussed. And the board's so concerned about this property being sold and something happening in the next 30 to 60 days, put a strategy together and put a call offer on that piece.
It's certainly an option.
Which would something like that generally run us?
It costs us something, but you could put a call option on.
Is that generally a percentage of
Could be a
offer?
negotiated price,
Could be a percentage of the purchase
bring
price.
them over
purchase.
their last offer, but you get it in writing and you can lock it. So therefore, you protect yourself in case it gets sold to the wrong person. You can step in and pay the premium. It's possible.
So what does that generally run? Anybody know? 10%?
I've never done it out of,
Aluminum. I used to know aluminum, I
Yeah.
don't know houses.
yeah, I've never done it on a piece this small. Well, most of the ones I've done have been huge.
You pay so much per ton for the price of aluminum. That wasn't a percentage, it was ever the free market, it was on the market. It was quoted.
Yeah. You were hedging.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
So it gives you
Gives you right of
The-
first stop refusal.
the option, but
Yeah.
not the obligation. The right, but not the
It's
obligation.
gonna cost you something.
Yeah, it's not free. But it's not 175,000 or 200,000.
Might be 20,000.
Or 20.
Whatever.
They might be able to negotiate
Down.
50% of it applies to the purchase price.
Or all of it.
Right. But it's another option.
Yeah.
Not being funny about it, but it's another choice you can make.
So, where are we?
Well, here we are. I mean, I think probably the best
get you.
option is maybe to, one of the things obviously we talked about earlier is to have Winston come back with that complete strategy and estimates of fair market value for those other pieces. And in fairness to say, that doesn't necessarily mean that you would go right out and try to buy those properties. I don't want anybody to be confused about that, but it's just to have an eye on the overall strategy. Should these particular key properties come on the market, or at some point should we, decide to proactively pursue them? We at least want to have an idea of the properties that we're talking about and what that investment would be, or at least our best estimate in today's world, I guess, of what that price would be. And then, I would say perhaps we ask about checking into a call option as well. Again, all of this could be a moot point if, the property's actively on the market and actively being pursued. We know that. So we don't necessarily have the luxury of having any choice in January or February or however long we decide to put off the decision. But I know I want the board to make the best informed decision that it can. And so I think probably the best thing to do at this point is to table the motion again until we can get that additional information. I think it's a good idea to add the information about a call option, see what we think that might cost and what those options might be. I'm just not banking on the Red Book being revised in time to impact this property the way that we want it to. So, because we just don't know
Carla-
how fast an owner would want to move if they get the property.
Is it your belief that the purchase of this property is imminent?
I can't answer that because I don't know what's happened after, what I know is this. I know that there's a company interested in the property, and I got a courtesy call. It just came up. It happens to be that I'm a customer of this business, right?
Oh.
So it came up in conversation when I was there doing business, and then, so as a courtesy, he called me a couple of days later and said that, you know, he had been in contact with the realtor and they were in hot pursuit of the property. So, just a courtesy call to let me know that they were considering it. Now, I mean, you know, because it is a storage company, in their defense, they know that that's a need. They know that, you know, I mean, if anybody's tried to store anything lately, you know that storage space is at a premium. So I don't think they're trying to come in here and build something ugly. I don't think that
Right.
at all. But that doesn't mean it won't be.
Right.
Because
And-
even though I'm a customer of a storage place, you know, it's kind of one of those not in my backyard things, right?
NIMBY.
So, you know, in fairness.
Right.
I'm sure that they see a need and an opportunity.
Right.
And if you were a business and you knew a neighborhood or a development had 200 people on a waiting list for storage, and there was a piece of property available, I mean, it only makes good business sense to say, hey, I think I'll buy that piece of property and fill this need for this community, right? And make the money on it.
So,
Is the-
just to be devil's advocate, so the difference between this enterprise building a storage facility and us buying the property and building a storage facility is what?
Well, one, we would probably make decisions that would protect the aesthetics and integrity of the neighborhood because it's ours. And two, we would realize the revenue from it.
Well,
But we'd also have to maintain it.
well, let me ask you a question, Carla.
And secure it.
Is the-
Well, but we have storage property in the village now that we charge money and get
I
revenue
understand.
and
I'm just-
maintain and
I'm
secure
just
it.
trying
I'm just
to-
saying, we already do that.
We're
We're
just
already
trying
in
to
that
understand.
business.
So are you going to move to retable? Is that what you're?
Well,
I do
Bruce
have-
had a question.
I just was wondering, the people that are in hot pursuit or whatever, are they aware that in building a storage facility down there, how shall I say, they have different rules than the one that is behind Sloan's now. They can't build what's down there now. Whatever they build would have to be paved, would have to be a lot different than it would be when that one was built.
And I don't know what they know. I mean, I can't
I mean,
speak to what they know.
If they're thinking that they're just gonna go down there and put
But-
in a gravel thing and,
Well, I mean, it's the same thing, Rick just asked if they know that Katy Trail's a
Right.
private road, well, so is Mialakwa,
right,
right? So
you'd think that they do
where
their
they already
homework,
have
but who
property,
knows?
I mean, I can see that they may be assuming
Well-
that it will be the same.
Right.
And so and that's why I
But we've
recommended.
granted access to those businesses on Mialakwa.
But that's why I recommended that they bring a draft, at least a draft plan to the ACC for a cursory review before they make a financial commitment. I did recommend that to them, but
Well,
they
in
can
fa-
follow that recommendation
Well,
or
in
not.
fact, you know, frankly, I would tell you the ACC would be reticent to give them the right to enter onto Kahidi Trail as a private road. And frankly, I
Well,
think
but
this
when
board
they-
would support that.
If they bought property that was contractually designated as commercial in that spot, I mean, that seems pretty egregious for us to say, oh, well, you bought property that's designated
Still a
commercial,
private
but you
road.
can't
We
use the
can- We can
road?
restrict access to our own roads.
I do know.
Or we can
and-
grant a license for them to use it.
I don't know so much about the Red Book side of the house, but on the Blue
I'm
Book
having a
side,
hard time believing that we can do that.
I
So
know that
anyway.
on the Blue Book side, sitting in the ACC, if a house or whatnot faces a road, even on the back side of the house, they're very particular about what that side of the house looks like when you go around that road. So I would expect that they would do the same thing on a commercial activity, that they would be very keen as to what that's gonna look like from the road. I would be shocked if they weren't.
So where are we?
Well, it seems like you guys need more information. to be able to make a decision. So I guess we just table it.
I
guess.
think, Rick, I think we need to follow through with what Winston's going to provide in January with the
So-
decision criteria.
So are you moving to retable?
Not at this point.
Okay, we have some property owners here who would like to have a say. Is there any reason why we
It's
can't let them
fine,
enter the discussion?
But I do that after the board is done.
Okay.
So is the board done?
No, I would move to retable, or just leave this table leave the table out there until January.
Can we wait to make that motion until we hear from the property owners who are here?
What do you
And we're
say?
going to retable to what end?
I would just say continue the current table.
Well, you can't do that. It was brought back to
It
the
was
table.
already
If you
brought
brought it
back up. We
then
need
I
a new
would move
table.
that
You would have to retable.
And that tabling is until we get better information on the process for acquiring new property?
Yeah, we've done it before, is we've tabled it until such time as you get the information. You guys, I won't be around, but you guys can work, and then you can make a decision and ratify it at the January. If you want to come back and say, let's have him go ahead and do it, let him do
Right.
it. And then
Right.
ratify it in January, but right now, you're basically, if you go with what you got right now, you're telling him to
That's
go
true.
right up to the point of writing a check.
I'd support going out there and negotiating a call option right now. Lock up the property with a premium. It doesn't mean you buy it. That just says you have an option
I didn't know
to
you
buy.
could do that on real estate.
Because you have too
It's
much
no
information you
obligation.
don't have an answer to.
So you're going out to buy an option to buy.
Yeah,
Buy an option to buy.
yep.
Wow.
And if they refuse that, which the owner probably wants to sell, not get an option, then what's the next step?
Well, we don't
And
know
then
if
we
they're
could
going to do
lose
well.
20 grand in.
Then you're gonna have to
Then you
decide
come
whether
back,
you're gonna match it.
you come back and make it.
Excuse me a second. There's a rumbling going on here, and
Yeah,
I
I
cannot
understand,
follow
but
this
the-
conversation with that rumbling. And I don't mean to be rude, but I can't hear to what to vote on, whether I'm
there
for you or against you. So, please.
There is a motion on the table. The motion is from the last meeting. Now, to put another motion on the table would require withdrawal of that motion. If you're going to make a motion to to amend the motion, and you're amending it to authorizing the CEO to go out and offer to purchase an option, that would be the new motion.
Well, I have just one quick question, Steve, and I'm not opposed to it, but hypothetically, if I challenge or I tasked Winston to go out there and buy an option to buy, and he negotiated 175, and then they charge us, let's just say hypothetically, it's 10% or 20%, something like that for that option. The guy is going to turn right around and go to the other guy who was interested and say, I have an offer on the table of 175. What say you? And the guy says, well, I want that piece of property, so I'm going out at 200,000. And then he comes back to Winston and says, well, I would love to give you that option, but now I've offered 200,000. What do you want to do, POA? Do you want to go to 250? See what I'm saying? He's not going to sit on the information. If he's given us, or potentially going to give us the option to buy for 175, he's not going to sit there and tell the next guy, sorry, I've sold it. He's going to say, what's your offer? I've been offered firm 175. He's going to go on up.
I'm not saying you go 175. Your call option may be at 200 with a premium.
Okay. Yeah.
And he doesn't have a check in made, it's on the table for the next 24 hours.
Okay.
Okay, well, so we got to change what we tell.
You gotta negotiate.
I do understand that, but right now, we told him negotiate
We haven't told the man, I guess it's sitting out there.
175, so, right, so
Well, we did tell him.
somewhere in that range.
Nothing's happened.
Yeah.
That's just that's just another alternative.
I understand.
Because it doesn't sound like we're gung ho to say, let's go spend 200,000 right now.
That's right.
I'm certainly not.
Before I decide what to do about the current motion that's on the table, can we hear from the property owners if the
Sure.
board is done discussing it?
I'm going to hold your motion to table, Bruce, in abeyance, and I'm going to ask for, input from the audience. And believe me, not all of you are going to get to speak. I understand that there's a large contingent here that are very interested in this, but I would ask that you be very brief. And, oh, by the way, if you start to repeat yourself, I will cut you off. So, who's first?
I'll make it brief. I just want to bring up, when we're referring to the Red Book and making modifications, what I'm hearing is the Red Book is really more about aesthetics versus the type of business. Being very familiar with the storage business for probably the last 20 years or so, it does bring a different clientele. It's very popular for meth labs, for storage of drugs and stolen property. It's also very popular for people who are homeless, or they have lost their home or for whatever reason, because renting a storage unit is much cheaper than renting an apartment. And it happens very frequently. This is not speculation, this is facts from storage businesses. And I think it's just important that we understand that, and also we can look forward to probably once a month having, they have to auction off property that people haven't paid for. So it brings a different type of clientele to the neighborhood that are coming in for the auctions, as well as the people that are losing their property, and they're not real happy about losing that property. So these are all considerations for that particular type of business. Just wanted to pass that information on. And like I said, this is factual. This is not speculation.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, I'm speaking as a resident of Tellico Village at the moment. I've done a little research on this property since the last month, since the last meeting. First of all, it's commercial property. It's already designated commercial property. It's inside Tellico Village. I spoke to a couple of different realtors, and that price, which is approximately $20,000 an acre, is a very fair price. On 411, an acre of commercial property goes between $30,000 and $40,000. This is not on 411, obviously, it's inside. Any type of business could go in there. It's a big piece of property, so the developer who goes in there can put a lot of different things in there and be in compliance with the Red Book. You could get a Jiffy Lube, you could get a Dollar General, you could get an auto parts store, storage units, tanning salon, you name it. According to the realtors I spoke to, probably the best use is a 5 or 6 unit strip center with a hair salon, a nail salon, maybe a coffee shop, a real estate office, any types of those small businesses. Actually, the ladies in Key probably like that. They get in their golf cart and not get their nails done and their hair done.
Oh, boy, you're in big trouble now.
But all
Brenda
those types
Sickum.
of things, and the Red Book, and I sat down last week and I read the Red Book start to finish, page by page, line by line. There are not a lot of restrictions in there. The height of the building, paving, the look of the building, maybe some signage. Other than that, if the developer crosses the T's and dots the I's, just like Dollar General did at the other end of the village, even though we tried to put some restrictions in there, Dollar General is sitting right out there. If the developer does that, if he dots the T's, crosses the I's, spends the money, the ACT really doesn't have a way to, in fact, turn them down. And last time I was here, Bruce brought up about setting a precedent of buying this property. Well, that precedent's already been set. It was set when you bought the Welcome Center. The Welcome Center was a building that was inside Tellico Village, which was bought, and I think it was a phone vote, as I recall, because it had to be done right away. It wasn't even at a meeting. You're buying this Cooper property, you're setting the precedent. All these properties are inside Tellico Village. Now, as far as, I disagree with Rick on the road thing, private road. I'm sure the deed to that property, because it's inside the village, says you have access to your property. Nobody would buy that property without access somewhere in their deed. So the private argument is not going to wash, in my opinion. We're buying the other property, the Cooper property, for control. We're doing the same thing here, for control of the property. If we buy the property, we can change the description. You can change it back to residential. You can create a buffer. Pat White mentioned this morning the Hilton Head idea. I hate to say this, I think like Pat, because I was the one who told him about the Hilton Head, about the buffer zones between the building. You know. So and as Carla says, this may not be on the market in 5 or 6 months. It may be gone fairly quickly.
It might be on the market for 10 years.
It might be. And the other properties that Winston brought up last week, they're not on the market. When they come on the market, we have to really consider buying those properties too. One thing this board needs to do, and the board has done, is protect the interests of the people in Tellico Village. And buying this property right now at a price which is cheap in a lot of people's ways is the right thing to do to protect the interests of the people in Tellico Village. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Tom? Oh,
Hi, Cap, can I say one more thing? I'm sorry. The ACC is also behind this. I have an email I received from Ken Heiseman, who's here, from the ACC, which says, as a member of the ACC, I must state that it is most important to our community and also of the village in whole, as the remaining properties that are potentially available as they come on the market, it is imperative that the POA does make a concerted effort to purchase these properties under the POA umbrella. The ACC only has limited power to control the usage of the properties within the Red Book guidelines, and objectionable use is extremely difficult to control, as the committee experienced during the Dollar General reviews. This does not bode well for the entrance to Kahidi with potential storage facility at our front entrance. And that's Ken is right here, and yeah, he told me I could read this. So the ACC understands the problems they have. If some developer comes in, dots the i's, crosses the t's, they're stuck.
I'm not going to ask for your opinion, Steve. I know that. Oh, let it out. Cap?
First, I'm going to, I'm Cap Purvis, by the way. First, I'm going to disagree a little bit with...
You need to step up to the microphone a little more.
I'm almost in it. First, I got to disagree slightly with Carla. As I said in the public meeting regarding the Cooper purchase, that the Cooper purchase was really to control our destiny. And I said that was the cake. The land that we got was sort of the icing on the cake. We did not set out, at least I did not when I was sitting on the board, did not set out to acquire land. Set out to acquire the developer rights. The fact that the land came with it, that was fantastic. But we wanted to buy the development rights. In regard to the Kahidi property, I can certainly empathize, because that is at the entrance of part of our village. In addition, there are 3 other major pieces of property that are right on 444. One of them is directly opposite Dollar General. If you look right now, there's our place being built and has been built. The other part of that property has been appraised at $631,000. It consists of 3.81 acres. It's right on 444. It'll be, as I said, directly opposite the Dollar General, which we all know what issues that caused. Come further down, I'm starting from the north end, come further down to Davis Ferry Road. If you turn left off of 444 onto Davis Ferry Road, that whole property on the left-hand side is owned by a gentleman by the name of John Tuck, who's a realtor. A couple of years ago, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, he actually presented architectural drawings to put on that property 3-story buildings. It would have been fairly high density. I don't know whether the county fire commissioner would have gone along with 3 stories, but we did that at the neighborhood, so who knows? He might have allowed that to go ahead. Now that is only appraised at $75,000 when it originally sold for $77,000, and it's 5.3 acres. Go a little bit further down, now you've got the entrance to the yacht club. Directly opposite the entrance to the yacht club is a Maple Hill Road property, and that's if you were to turn, if you're coming from the north end south, you turn right on Maple Hill Road, and it's right there to your right. Now that's appraised right now at $274,000. It sold originally for $400,000, and that's 9.0 .02 acres. The gentleman that owns that was going to build a car wash and a little strip mall until he found out that they would not allow, the TDOT would not allow him to have an entrance off of 444, and he was going to have his entrance off of Maple Hill Road. So then he decided he didn't want to invest that amount of money to do that project, knowing that he couldn't be right on 444. Now, all I'm saying is let's have a strategy. Let's talk about, oh, this one comes on the market, let's buy that one. That one comes up, let's buy that one. Decide what you want to do and then do it with a strategy, setting aside how much money you want to spend on all these. And if you want to then go after these properties, I'm sure John Tuck would love to get his money back because he hasn't moved forward with it. This other gentleman, Maple Hill, that sold for $400,000. It's appraised right now at only $274,000. He might love to get back some of his money too. So all I'm asking the board is to consider a strategy, not just a rifle shot approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom McPhee.
Tom McPhee. I've lived in Tellico Village since 2010. So we procrastinated about this for a couple of months now. It was voted, I believe, and to go ahead with it, and then we had some secondary issues and thought, well, I don't know. But I'll tell you, you know, I think we all moved here because of the harmony, the friendship. I remember the story about meeting, I believe it was Dave. Dave? Who'd you meet the first day of golf? Bob. And we have a chance to continue to do that. We can argue whether a person has rights to the roads. I believe they probably do if they own the property. $175,000 for 8.3 acres. Are you telling me this board, and I know all of you, are not smart enough to figure out a way to make money on that and control what goes in that suits the harmony of the village? We already have a process. You have the long-range planning, do a study on what we need. You have ACC control the aesthetics and how it's built to fit in with the harmony of the village. It's not just about this property, it's about all the properties, like Cap said. But we have to start with this one. This is the one that's on the market today, will sell. 8.3 acres for 8.75 acres for $175,000. Prime real estate. Beth, what's the average lot sell for? Quarter acre. We don't even have many quarter acres. What would that sell for?
Probably about 9 or 10.
So this property is going to sell. And like it or not, we can study, we can, you know, revert and push this back another month, another couple months like we have. We can task our CEO to come up with a plan, or we can trust the committees we already have in place that do this. Long-range planning and ACC, buy the property, task them to come up with it, task them to come up and look at the other properties and come back with a strategy, ask Beth to come back and say what's the fair market value for the other properties and when should we buy them and what should we do with it, versus just saying, I haven't got enough balls to vote on this today, I'm going to keep pushing it off until it is totally out of our control and we end up with something that we are all not happy with and will regret. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, I'm gonna entertain one more person. We've got to get on with the rest of our agenda.
My name is Dave Cropper. I'm a Kahidi resident. I moved here from Indianapolis about 14 months ago, and Kahidi is a great place. I love it. We moved here. I've recommended this place to many, many friends and acquaintances, my business acquaintance in Indianapolis. So I'm kind of disheartened that I've come to find out that the TRDA is not on our side. And you guys, I don't know if you know about this or not, but there's a lot of problems with this place. And you guys, somebody mentioned the TRDA was involved with some of this because of the land and then this red book. in my case, in Indianapolis, if you tried to build one of these storage spaces around, and they surround in Fishers, Carmel, Westfield, Greenwood, you won't build one there now, I guarantee you, because all the problems with that young lady mentioned earlier. It's ridiculous. So why would you guys want to blight the property that has such a reputation that, and not just here, people, I don't know how many people come from California, live in Kahidi, and never mind here. I can't imagine how many here. So why, and like the other gentleman just said, $175,000, come on, guys, it's a drop in the bucket. You're a 501c3. You know, I just don't understand it. All the money you have that you make here every year, there's got to be that money, and you got to be, look, like the other guy said, planning ahead. This, I mean, if it's the Red Book or the TRDA and all this has to be involved, I don't understand, because in Indianapolis, the reason they don't build them because of zoning. They have zoning requirements that are just unreachable for these guys to put this investment in that property and in that type of business. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more request. One of the things that we talked about in formulating this strategy was to include potential uses for that land. And Clayton, do you mind to share what we talked about earlier about potential use for that property up there? A pickleball court.
So,
Yeah, I think
so
it's on.
Carla was asking me, what would we do with it, you know? I mean, the gardens used to be there, so, you know, it depends. I mean, it's such a touchy situation, what people want to see and what they don't want to see. So, I mean, you know, we could always put the gardens back. You know, we could, I mean, maybe someday if people would accept it, we could have a storage facility for Public Works back in the back where we could keep equipment and stuff over there where we weren't hauling stuff back and forth. Many different things we could do, you know. So, but it's going to be hard to get everyone to agree on the use of it. So that's what makes it so hard.
Understood. He was mentioning the fact that whenever they have a public works call, they have to bring equipment from the Loudon campus over there. And so he's like, if it's a call in the middle of the night and there's an issue, then they've got to come here and haul equipment over there. And if they had a place in that campus where they could keep stuff. I mean, as he mentioned, there are a lot of potential uses for that property. There are ways that, you know, the POA could use that property. And I don't think that we should ever discount the fact that it could just be a buffer property, even if it stays wooded and it stays green space. I think it's important. Those of you who've played golf over at Kahidi might have seen a single-engine plane flying over quite often, almost every day. And there's a grass landing strip that is immediately on the perimeter of that property, right behind that entrance property, right on the other side of the fence line. So you've got the Tellico Village property, you've got a fence, you've got a landing strip for small aircraft, and then you've got a farm. And nobody knows what the long-term disposition of that farm will be. I mean, typically, when generations change, you know, if the next generation decides not to farm, then they might look at selling that property. I have no idea what that disposition might be, but I think
Okay.
it's important to remember that, you know, we don't have any control over that.
Carla, I'm going to suggest something. I'm
Okay.
going to suggest an amendment to your original motion.
Okay.
The original motion did not have an option to purchase in it. So it would, for the first sentence would read, to authorize the POA's chief executive officer to engage in negotiations to either purchase or acquire an option to purchase, and then the rest is the same. Do you accept the amendment?
Well, here's the thing that I don't want to do. I don't want to ask this board to vote on something if they feel like they don't have enough information. I agree that time is of the essence, but my problem is I would like to know if this board feels like they have enough information to take this vote today, or if they want to wait till they get more information from Winston
Well, then that would
regarding
be
the
a
strategy.
retable.
Right.
So are you moving to retable?
I kind of like your option because it keeps the property in play. If we can negotiate a contract to purchase or an option to purchase, that gives us a little bit more time to get this whole thing consolidated into what is the decision criteria when you buy property within Tellico Village versus not. So I kind of like your modification, Rick.
I disagree with you.
Well,
I
wait a
don't
second.
want that purchase in there at all.
I jumped in here first. Hold on a second. Okay, so in my little small world sitting over here, what you're asking me to consider and you're going to ask me to vote for and respect everybody's opinion out there, I'm getting the impression that I'm going to vote on something because somebody says I'm going to go buy it, and if you don't, well, I got a guy from Mercedes sent me an email and a text today saying if I don't buy this car tomorrow, he's going to get rid of it. Well, guess what, fella? Sell your car. You're not going to pressure me into that. Second thing, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm not, because I'm sitting here with your $200,000 and going to spend it. And when I go up there, and this is my little world sitting over here, the next thing is if we own it, property owners, there's somebody that's got to build that unit or that 3-story or
Okay.
that commercial or the roads and all of that. And that is not cheap. We built the TOQA for $2.4 million.
Yep.
And so who's going to pay for it? I'm paying for it out of my assessment fee, folks, and you are. Okay, Tommy, somebody's got to build it up there if we buy it. It's now ours.
Okay,
And we
okay,
have,
fine.
wait a second, one more
time
thing.
out.
We have not thought through the entire strategy of the
Well,
ramifications
then
from
what you're
beginning
telling
to
me
end.
is that.
It's
and
Carla's
he-
motion.
Actually, I would tell you, Bruce has a motion to table that he made. I'm going to ask whether there's a second. There's no second, your motion fails.
Okay.
So,
Well, let me just say something. I don't think that this board or the village ought to work on fear, and that's what this room is doing, is operating on fear right now.
look, stop. Pardon me. I want this meeting to stay in order, otherwise I'm going to empty the room, okay? And don't argue with the audience, okay? We asked to hear their opinions, they've expressed their opinions. Now, we as a board have an obligation to make a decision. So, you made the original motion, what do you want to do with it?
Well, what I would like to do with it, but again, I mean, here's the problem. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place in some ways, because I don't want to, push this vote because I feel very strongly about the timeliness of the issue, only to, have it fail just because we don't have enough information to say yes. All right, so that's my problem. But then the other side of that coin is we may not have the time to say wait, right? So I just feel like it's important to figure out how we can go forward in the best way that's in the best interest of the entire village. And so the question is there, because the way that the motion was originally formulated, the purchase agreement would have to be brought back to the board for approval.
And that, it's still
So we
formulated
never-
that way.
We never said that, Winston can go out and write the check. That
Nope.
always has to come back to the board for approval.
Exactly.
So, and I 100% agree that these other properties are key and should be considered, Should they come on the market, or as Winston suggested, should we actually, pursue something? I agree with that. I agree with that, and I think that all of that aligns with the strategy that we implemented with the CCI deal, okay? All of that said, what I would like to do is figure out our best possible way to consider this without getting, behind the 8 ball with the timeline. So to say, let's, table it and wait another month or two until we figure out what we're going to do, it's probably a moot point. So what Steve suggested, if we could maybe expand on that to say, explore what it would cost to have a call option, explore what it would be to negotiate that and then come back to the board and say, this is what we can do, while in conjunction with, kind of finalizing this strategy that Winston preliminarily, spoke to us about this morning.
It'll have to come back to the board for final approval, whether it's an option or a purchase agreement. So the amendment that I offered to you takes both into account, and it still's got to come back to the board for approval. So
Will you read that again, please?
to authorize the POA's chief executive officer to engage in negotiations to either purchase or acquire an option to purchase, and then it continues. And the last sentence is the final purchase agreement is to be brought back to the board for final approval. So,
So moved.
well, actually, there was a second. Pat, do you accept the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Want to take it outside?
So, I'm not going to call for further discussion. I think all of us have aired whatever we're going to air. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 2. And by the way, Carla, you know why I'm opposed.
I do.
I believe it's all financial. I believe we've just entered into a $5.3 million deal that we got to figure out how to pay for. And I believe we're entering a period of high inflation well beyond what we contemplated when we set our budget, which spends $4 million in capital.
I understand.
So mine is entirely based on that. So now we can move on. I need the finance people up here so I can beat the hell out of them.
And I would like to
I
thank
know
all of
they
our
do.
property owners for being here today and being a part of this process. Thank you so
We need
much.
to be quick, because we got to vacate this room at 4:30.
Y'all don't want to stay for the financial report? It's
So-
compelling.
So, order in the room, please. I've asked Charlotte to go through the financials as fast as she possibly can. We have a special meeting following this one, and we need to vacate the room, so we've got to be efficient.
Mr. President, Board, Villagers, thank you for coming out. Happy holidays.
Just the high points.
Okay, high points.
High point.
Assessed lots for the month of November, 6,701. POA lots sold year-to-date, 296. We have inventory, 291 lots. Head count, full-time, 106. We're still searching for 5 golf maintenance, 1 village maintenance, 1 marketing manager, and 1 HR manager. Property transfers, year-to-date, 1,122. We are in the process of building 324 homes. New home permits, 346. Miscellaneous permits, 327. Golf, doing extremely well at 102,000 rounds. That's almost 4% over prior year. Docks, we have a wait list of 189, and RVs, a wait list of 77. Recreation going strong with 582 individual memberships and family memberships trailing slightly behind prior year at 870. Okay. Cash on books, 4.8 million, reserves 8.4 million, for total cash and reserves of 13.2 million. Getting on to the P&L revenue. Year-to-date, 23,233,000, expenses 17,518,000, for net income of 5,715,000. That is favorable to the budget of 5,364,000. Moving on to the revenue categories. Assessment revenue continues to grow with the increased number of paying lots. The late fee shortfall is offset by Bad debt expense, as mentioned, golf revenue is up, doing very well. Rec membership is up and going strong. Installed tanks, we had 15 closed jobs. We are seeing a slight profit erosion this year. Dock revenue is favorable. As mentioned, a waiting list of 189, and RV is favorable with a wait list of 77. ACC permits, the favorable variance is due to higher number of new home permits. And other revenue, the favorable variance is due primarily to administrative fees associated with the transfers, home transfers. And then here's the trended revenue and expenses. Maintenance expenses, we'll start with maintenance. There's timing delays here, primarily due to pavement preservation. We've done the Kahidi Trail, that's complete, and next year we'll do the Kahidi side roads. The overlay Kahidi is complete, and the Tokwa parking lot will be completed in the spring of 2022, and that was delayed due to the weather and contractor availability. We're also working on the water system improvement. We're waiting on the water study to be completed. The water storage rehab, the interior is complete. The exterior, we're waiting on materials. And then the dock anchor replacement is complete. The wet well coating, we've had some scheduling delays with the vendor, and that will be completed in 2022. And the Chota sprinkler system is complete. As mentioned, salaries are favorable against budget due to, we're searching for, I mentioned earlier, the positions that we are searching for. Water and sewer, the revenue is favorable against budget, and food service is going extremely well. And the favorable variance related to other is due to the sale of golf carts, the sale of lots, and the disaster recovery related to the Public Works fire. Here's the trended net income. And I'll just go through these quickly. These were requested by the financial advisory. We'll skip the divisional.
Is that okay? Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay. And then golf round reports,
I think we all know the story on golf.
okay. And
I'm just trying to get you
recreation.
off the stage fast.
Any questions?
There it is.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Now, I do have a question or two.
Well, you know, it wouldn't be a meeting without that.
Thank you. For next month,
Yes.
if you could bring a year-end analysis of your maintenance spend, actual versus budget, and why, once again, we're well over $1 million not spent. What didn't get done?
Actually, Kevin's going to address that in today's meeting.
Well, I want through December, year-end, yeah, okay.
Oh,
And then what's missing is your suspense accounts. How many accounts are suspended? So the question is, have there been any foreclosure activities in the last 30 to 60 days since the board said go ahead and put that policy back in place?
Okay. Anything else, Steve?
The last item is I had a conversation with a property owner who was upset because we hadn't reviewed in general session the total financial impact versus the original budget for the Wellness Center roof. So in January, I'd like to have one slide that shows everything we spent to end up getting a shingle roof and compare that to what our options were when we first said let's go with metal versus shingle, because I think it's going to show we spent well over $100,000 more than had we decided originally to go with shingle.
Charlotte, that's really an assignment for Kevin, because he's already gone through that partially.
Right, but whatever.
Yeah, we
Thank
did,
you.
we did that once.
That was an executive session. It was not shared with the property
Yeah,
owners.
I understand that.
Okay.
So basically, he just needs to dust it off, update it, and
And present it in general session so everybody can see.
I'm good.
Oops.
Thanks, Charlotte.
So again, I'm going to ask you to be speedy.
Yep. I feel like an Asian carp here. Real quick on activities, we've got year-end underway, trying to make sure we've got everything recorded as is protocol. We've got our external auditor scheduled for year-end inventory for Public Works and Golf. That's kind of a standard year-end activity as well. And I'll skip down to the second to last. We do have some larger capital items that finally came in, and these have been on order from previous board approval for months. The Fecon, and then a milling machine for asphalt, and then a vacuum excavator for the water and sewer. So good there, and then Charlotte already mentioned the strong cash balances. Next slide, please, Shannon. There are three capital items to talk about for 2022 capital. Two of them do not require board approval. They've already been through Winston as CEO. It's within his authority. Both of them are for leg presses, one for Kahidi and the other one for the Wellness Center. The Kahidi leg press was budgeted at $7,000, came in just slightly over. Source of funds was operating cash. Obviously, Simon has 3 bids, and again, no action required. He is going with the low bid with Life Fitness. Next slide, please. The second leg press is a little bit more of a heavy machinery, consistent with Simon's focus on knee recovery and orthopedic issues. TOC at the Wellness Center helped evaluate equipment. Simon's budgeted amount was $12,000. The requested amount was just under $10,000. Again, the source of funds would be operating cash. It was within CEO authority and was approved with the lowest bid.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Are these for 2021 outlays?
2022.
So you're just approving them to negotiate or award a contract, but no outlays?
Well, it's a one-time purchase, so we don't have a services contract per se.
No, I'm just
It would be
saying,
to
you should
order.
not be spending 2022 money in 2021.
You won't, cash won't leave until 2022.
Yeah,
Correct.
it'll leave next month.
You place the purchase order now to get it in queue. So what happens here is, in the past, as you know, we underspend our capital budget because we wait till June, July, August to get projects approved.
Bingo.
So what I suggested to the RAC and Simon is, typically in business, you get your budget approved. Once that budget's approved, you've got to have your projects ready to be approved by the board to get moving on out.
And it's the same thing with this 2022 dock for
Yes.
23. They're already working on that.
I understand
It
that.
is.
That'll come to the board next month.
Just want to make sure you're not doing any outlays of 2022 money in 21.
No.
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 And-
Simon would just need to order with the vendor, and then obviously vendors take a long time to actually source materials, so
And when we were talking about this capital budget, we talked about having an overall capital project schedule of when we might expect those. Do we have that, or no?
I do not have that yet. I've got the,
Winston has that assignment.
Great.
great. The one that does require board approval, it's a conversion of one of the racquetball courts at Chota Rec. I think we talked about this extensively during the budget. The budgeted amount is $51,000. The requested amount is $55,545. The source of funds would be operating cash. It did get approved or recommended by the Finance Advisory Committee last Friday. Rec Advisory Committee has already approved this as well. And it's in line with Simon's strategy of growing in place and better utilizing the existing structure. I think we had some good discussion on Friday at the FAC. I think there's about 6 folks that utilize the racquetball courts. This would just take one of them away. The project components would be spin bikes for $38,000, some acoustic tile to cut down on sound of just under $6,000, some absorbent flooring for $2,800. I could say big ass fan or some other brand fan. That's the brand name. $5,990, and then a sound system for $2,600.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve the capital expenditure of $55,545 to convert an underutilized racquetball court into an indoor cycling classroom funded from operating cash.
So moved.
So this work is being ordered, but will not start until January 1st.
They won't cut the check till.
Cash will not leave until January.
Okay, but.
They could start the work tomorrow, I don't care.
If
The
they
cash
start
doesn't
to work
get,
tomorrow, then you should start accruing expenses. And if you accrue expenses, you're spending 22 money in
next year's
21.
However, with the way inflation is going right now, I think we should do all of the bids and all the purchase orders right now today.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. By the way, in case you didn't see it, November's wholesale inflation was 10%.
Yeah. Double
I'm
digits.
just saying, use $21.
Wait till we see
You
what
got-
December's
you
gonna
got
do on the CPI.
$21 left.
Spend them as fast as you can.
So,
Final vote?
any other discussion?
only other point to be made here is by adding, taking a facility that's not being used and adding new items such as spin class. We can't say spin because it's a mark, it's a, I don't know, trademark. We expect to pick up a few more memberships because of this service provided.
Okay, all in favor? 7-0.
All right, thank you.
Simon, can you use guest passes to take spin classes? Perfect.
Okay, there was a board request to provide, we still have a few more weeks left in the year. Pat, I know this is similar to your doc slide. I apologize for the font. Basically, we've gone through, the board has approved to date $2,853,422 in budgeted 21 capital. The board has authorized $3 million. We're slightly unfavorable by 154, and we've spent to date just under 1.9. So we do have some catch-up on capital spend when equipment like this does not reflect the FECon, the milling machine, and the vacuum excavator, which just came in last week, and the checks were already cut for that. So when you see the final December, we'll have a lot more in the actual spend column. And then Shannon, next slide, please. So projects approved to date, I just talked about. There's some capital, I covered this once before with the board of what will not be requested. We did have the 2 incremental ACC staff. The associated trucks obviously won't be needed this year. Range picker, batteries, that's tied in with golf and the new carts. And then we talked about Wellness Center covered court design work was covered in Timeless Teleco. And then the HVAC purification system was put tabled due to efficacy and how that all worked during COVID. What would carry forward, I'll just hit the major items. There's some standard utility vehicles, equipment type work. Big items, obviously, there's $40,000 for water storage tank mixer, $300,000 for water system improvements. Those 2 are in the current budget as a carryover, along with an incremental $300,000 in the 2022 budget. So once the water study gets evaluated, all the different options are considered, there's $640,000 next year tied towards water system improvements. Variable frequency drives for main lift station pumps would carry over. And then Mitzi, if you recall, the board last meeting approved the yacht club renovation, Kahidi kitchen expansion. Some of that carries over. There's some kitchen equipment, hoods, chairs, et cetera. So all of that would carry over as well. So there would be roughly 596,000 carried over into capital.
Question, what's the accounting for the Kahidi Pier and boat launch?
Those aren't in the plan.
So it says capital carry forward,
That's wrong.
and it's in that list. So what we're saying is that vaporized.
Yep.
Not going to be carried forward, not going to happen,
It was suggested that I
not
put
in the
it below
10-year
the line.
plan.
Carry it forward and below the line in the budget, so it's still out there as an option.
So it will actually be below the line in the '22 budget?
I believe so.
I just think it's important not to completely forget it and let it be vaporized. So that's why, because when I asked that last month, when we approved the budget, I was told no, that that wasn't going to happen. So I just want to make sure it's somewhere.
Yep.
Now, and when we talked about it before, I said, I understand that because of its location, it could be contingent upon what happens with that piece of property that's being purchased with the CCI deal. And I was good with moving it out to the 2023 year in the 10-year plan. But I didn't get support for either one of those things. And I just don't want to see it completely just disappear. Because it's been something that's been promised for many years now. So if we could make sure that that goes in there somewhere, either below the line in the '22 budget or in a, near out year.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on.
Okay, next slide, please, Shannon. So Clayton, I've got Clayton here. What I wanted to do, and this kind of addresses, I think, what Steve was talking about, especially on our maintenance expense. I've got this broken down into capital, and then next slide will be expense. But on the capital side, we have the water master plan, which was budgeted at 86. We've paid 83 to date. There's a little bit that I'll accrue in December as that study gets finalized, presented to the board. We've got the Chota water tank mixer. That'll be a carry forward of capital that I just talked about. Water system improvements we talked about. The board approved $169,200 on the Chota water tank rehab. We've spent $100,000. We've communicated to the board that that has not, the interior is all done, no issues identified. We still have some remaining spend. So right now, that's sitting in my fixed asset in progress. And as that cash in the spring comes out, I will complete that and then capitalize that. We do have the Toqua Club paving. This is the new lot, so it's not maintenance. That was $79,000. That would also carry forward into 2022. The wave attenuator, we approved at $220,000. We paid $169,534. That remaining spend, I'll probably accrue and finish up in December. Clayton's holding payment for that until the vendor finalizes some small checklist items. But for all intents and purposes, that asset is functioning, and I feel we need to, from an accounting perspective, get that asset fully recorded and depreciating. We talked about the Toqua and Coyote pump replacements, $20,000. That is really dependent upon the final wastewater master plan. And then the variable frequency drives for master lift station, again, that would be a carry forward into 2022. Next slide, please. So on the expense side, for the sewer master plan, we have $80,100. We've paid $43,675. That remaining spend with the delivery of that report in the next week, I'll be fully accruing that in December. The Toqua Club paving overlay of $100,000. Nothing's been paid, that hasn't been done. What I'd like to So recommend to the board is consider adding that 2022 expense to the approved budget. We've got $60,000 for preventative maintenance software. That is currently in the budget as part of the asset management for 2022, so nothing's required. Wet well coating, that's an additional one that the work wasn't done. So $32,000, I would propose moving that into 2022 expense. And then the large one, our road surface restoration, or PMM. The authorized amount was $512,500. We've paid $275,000, so the remaining spend would be $237,449, which, when I talked to Clayton, next year, as presented and approved in the 2022 budget, the road maintenance expense actually takes a little bit of a dip. So one thing that PSAC and Clayton were working on is how best to smooth that over the years. If the board were to approve putting this incremental expense in 2022, Clayton feels good that he would be able to get this done. So all the Kahidi stuff Charlotte was mentioning in the financials, plus everything that was scheduled in the 22 budget as approved.
Okay. Any questions on that?
So if we approve it, you're gonna rerun the financials and give us a whole new set?
Of budgets?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to have to do that anyway, Steve, because in about 2 seconds, I'm going to be asking you about Cooper.
So you'll give us a new look with cash flows,
Yes, sir.
reserve funds, everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the effect of the CCI deal.
And normally, I wouldn't, come to the board and ask for additional expense, but I think it's important that, especially on the road maintenance, that.
Run a variance all year long.
Correct.
Quick.
Okay, cash flow, I'll skip that. Obviously, we're doing well from a net income, and we're doing well with cash. So here is the 2022 budget for the POA. That first column is what was approved. We talked about the Cooper investment being a separate budget, and then we would consolidate them together. The due diligence kind of proved out our pro formas. There is revenue from the commercial lessees as well as the dock rentals. There are 2 incremental headcount, one in marketing and one in common ground maintenance. So the salary and benefits there. We do have interest expense on the debt. There's depreciation on the commercial building, and then all other I just kind of grouped all the detail expenses. That 178 includes $100,000 of one-time expense for R&M, 50 for the docks, 50 for the commercial building. The remainder of it is mostly, there's property tax to be paid on all the commercial lots. There's insurance that had to go into effect tomorrow for all the different POA assets. So for 2022, it would take down the net income by $212,000. So it would still keep us right at $2 million. And then if, with the incremental expense that we just talked about, a new consolidated book would have us right around $1.7 million in net income for next year. Next slide, please.
Kevin, may I ask a question?
Yes.
On that last slide, you talk about salaries and benefits. Previously, there was another line item called personnel, and I think in that was professional development and training and some other items like that.
Yep.
Is that still separate? So so that's not our full cost of people yet, right? That doesn't
No.
include that personnel line?
It does not.
Okay.
No. That's FICA, FUTA, SUI, et cetera. Steve, to your point on the balance sheet, I was going to put a consolidated balance sheet out for everyone, but there really is only 3 different items that the Cooper transaction will affect on our balance sheet. One is we'd be taking on $5.3 million of land, and I've agreed with Cooper. We have to file with the IRS what that asset proration would be. We would take on the 3.975 of debt, and then my cash would decrease tomorrow by 1,325,000. So those three items are really the only thing that would impact the balance sheet and hence the cash flow. And then, obviously, here's a 10-year outlook on the CCI investment. Next slide. Sure. Yep. Next slide, please, Shannon. So as far as integration, we've already created a new division for the commercial properties. You'll see that in December for the new transaction. We've updated all the financial reports. We've folded in, the intent is to fold docks into the dock and RV, remaining land to be booked. My plan is to isolate the larger parcels, which may or may not have commercial development potential. So it's easy if the board would to decide in the future to do something with those parcels, I don't have to unmingle my fixed asset base. And then obviously add a new budget over the next few weeks for January or December close. And again, the insurance gets activated tomorrow. Next slide, please.
Okay, this is a series of budget resolutions that the board needs to approve to, incorporate the CCI deal into the budget. So I'm going to go through them one at a time. The first one is to approve the 2022 operating budget for revenues, expenses, and net income relating to the CCI investment. I need a motion. Pat? Steve, you do the second? Yep. Steve? Discussion? All in favor? 7-0. The second motion is to approve purchased assets of $5.3 million, $975,000 from debt, and $1,325,000 from operating cash currently on the balance sheet. Motion, Pat? Second? Sue? Discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Next one is to approve dock rates for the former CCI docks equal to the TVPOA dock rate schedule effective January 1st, 2022. Motion? Pat? Second? Sue? Discussion? All in favor? 7-0. And the final one is acceptance of the revised 2023 through 2032 10-year plan as a planning document subject to continued review. Motion. Sue? Second? Pat? Discussion? Vote? Vote.
What did we vote?
Okay.
That was the left-hand vote.
So are you done?
I am done. Thank you.
Okay, so it brings us to the next agenda item, which is actually more pleasant than some of the others were. Okay, so we have two departing board members this year who have offered their services to the board for quite some time and have done yeoman work. So first, Carla. Carla's been on the board since 2019, and she was the vice president of the board in 2020. It's been my pleasure to work with you. No. Good. Bruce. So, Bruce has been on the board for 6 years. By the way, I've been on the board with him for 4, it seems like 10. However, he's been on the board since 2016, and he was board president from 2017 to 2019. I've enjoyed working with you, Bruce. But I've especially enjoyed what happens after board meeting.
Amen.
And I'll leave it to you to guess what that is. Thank you.
Hold on, stay there.
In case you wonder, Bruce and I usually have Manhattans right after the meeting.
Old fashions.
Well, whatever. Okay, one more agenda item would be the certification of the board election. And I need a motion to accept and certify the 2021 board election results as recommended by the board's election committee.
I so moved.
Carla and Marty.
Good luck, y'all.
All in favor, well, discussion.
Are we sure?
What, we're getting rid of them.
Are they sure? Did any of them
We have
back
new
out? Did they change their mind?
So, all in favor? 7-0. So with that, I'll move to other.
Do I have to, we have to move?
Not yet.
We're
Not
I
yet?
have another.
I haven't
Not on
adjourned the
the board
meeting
yet.
yet.
I have my last other.
Well, go ahead.
All right, my other is awesome. So I have been nagging the Communications Department and Advisory Committee for 3 years. So my board goals always have to do with communications, marketing, and public relations. And so, in addition to some other things. But for this particular thing, one of the things that we've really worked on with this committee and with the department is public relations and improving Tellico Village's reputation in the area and getting the word out about Tellico Village. And I'd like for Beth to tell about, maybe give a little bit of an overview about what you're doing in that regard and a recent accomplishment in that area.
So one of the things we've really been trying to do is get out more into the community, and one of the things we've been working with is Fletcher PR, who's helped us on a national level, but also working some contacts locally. And we were able to secure a spot monthly on WBIR 5 at 4. And so what we've been looking for, and we've been running it in the Telegram for a couple weeks, of if you're an expert or you have a hobby or you have an interesting story, to let us know. And so luckily we've had a couple people step forward for that. Charlie Bernard did a segment on fall activities in Tellico Village a month before last. Joe Bogardus did one for us for Shop Local, which we featured the Tellico Village Business Alliance. And then most recently, yesterday, Holly Sequin, who is a newer villager, and Joe toured her. She did a segment on WBR called That's a Wrap, and her mom actually taught her how to make all sorts of very unique bows. She can make birds and Christmas trees, and so that's actually online, and we'll be sharing that on social media and the gram. So that was just another segment, and it was very well done. And so this is just one of the ways that we give back to the community to let them know our expertise that villagers have. So if you have an expertise, whether it's in your career, you have a unique hobby, or anything along those lines, please let us know, because we'd love to feature you. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm really excited about that. They've done a great job. I think you ought to give them a hand. It's really important. It's really important for us to be seen as a good neighbor in East Tennessee, and that's a really great way to do it. And the fact that it wasn't just a one-off deal, that it's a monthly slot, that's kind of a big deal. So I'm really thrilled with their success in that area.
Great. Any others? Okay, well, I just have one. I want to wish everybody a very happy holiday and a prosperous new year.
Here to prosper.
And now I will adjourn the meeting, and the board will go into special session as soon as we get rid of these two deadbeats.
We'll just be
And we get the two new victims up here.
We'll see you down there.
Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I want to welcome the two new board members. The purpose of today's meeting is to elect the 2022 officers and to make board assignments. And with that, I'm passing the gavel to our CEO, Winston Blazer, to conduct the election of the president.
Okay, as Rick said, we're going to elect the 2022 Tellico Village Property Owner Association chairman. Once that election's made, our nomination is made, Mitzi's going to pass out ballots. You all will fill out your ballot, pass it back to, it would be Kevin, but Mitzi's going to have to fill in. We'll tabulate that, and then we will announce who the new president will be, and then I will pass this sheet of paper which has assignments on there, and he will start the meeting from there and be filling out those liaisons and et cetera. So anyway, you ready, Mitzi? Do I have a nomination for president? Pat was first. Marty Inkrot.
I second.
Any other nominations?
I move to close nominations.
Second?
This is easy. We don't need a vote.
So you have to ask for
Just hold
all
on
in
to it.
favor. It's a vote by acclamation.
Okay, all in favor of Marty Inkrot, president?
So he's elected by acclamation.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
So Marty,
think-
here,
You were duly
pass this
awarded.
down to Marty. And I'm happy to be rid of it.
So anyway, we have a sheet here for you to go through.
Okay.
All right. So,
All right.
take it from there.
Any nominations for vice president? Steve?
I nominate Sue.
It's been moved in second for Sue. Any other nominations?
I move to close nominations.
It's been moved in second to close the nominations. All in favor of Sue, raise your right hand. All opposed? 7-0. Secretary, any nominations? Sue? A second?
Second?
Second by Steve. Am I supposed to be noting all this?
No, secretary should.
Yeah, the
like-
secretary's got it.
Well, he's not secretary yet.
Oh, we needed that little point behind.
Marty, I'm taking notes. Don't worry about it.
You're filling in the blanks? All right, that's what I thought. I had to keep writing them down here. Any other nominations for secretary besides Pat?
Move to close nominations.
Second?
Nominations are closed. All in favor of Pat, right hand. All opposed? 7-0. Treasurer, any nominations? Pat?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Steve for treasurer. Any other nominations?
Move to close. Fine.
Out of the way, John.
He's figured it out.
Do we have a second for John? Nominations are closed. All in favor of Steve? All opposed? 7-0. We'll move on to advisory committees. Actually, we'll start with the board committee assignments. I went ahead and made my recommendations, so I'm just going to go down through them, and we can have any discussions later on, but I'll just kind of go down through what I put down. So for audit committee, I have Steve as the treasurer, as well as Pat and Bob. For the election committee, Rick Blau, Bob Brunetti, and Steve Schneider. We'll publish all these, so you don't have to write them down. It's up to you. For the
Nominated.
compensation committee, I have Pat White and John Arguelles.
Yeah, he's got the spreadsheet.
For the nominating committee, I've got Pat White, John Arguelles, Bob Brunetti. That was limited because some of us
Some
can't.
of us can't be on it.
Government Affairs Committee, I have Pat White, Rick Blau, Sue, English Kovar, and me. And on the 401K Committee, I have Rick Blau. Okay, that does it for the board committees. Now the advisory committees. For the liaisons, I don't know if I'm following this list. I'm going to follow my list because I know I've got that in order.
However you want to.
So, communications, Rick Blau. Finance, Pat White. Golf, Bob Brunetti. Government affairs, John Arguelles. Long-range planning, Sue English Kovar. Public services, Marty Inkrot. Recreation, Steve Schneider. Marketing, John Arguelles. Marinas, Bob Brunetti. Townhouse Association, John. Volunteer Fire Department, Rick. And Honors Award, do we have that for next year? or
No,
is
it's
that-
every other year.
Yeah, it's every other year. I don't think you have to name anybody to that right now.
Okay, I'll keep myself as on it since I was on it last year, but then
Okay.
we'll reassign that for next year. So the only other thing that I have left then is the representatives to each of the meetings, and I believe Shannon will put out a sign-up sheet for that. So we'll have the HOA general meetings,
And the POA 101s.
the POA 101, and the HOA
ACC.
welcome orientation, as well as ACC meetings. So in the ACC meetings for the two new guys, I believe it's like 4 each or something like that.
It's
that
more
we'll
like
sign up
6,
for.
actually.
Is it?
Yeah, there's 24 meetings, there's 7 of us.
It's only 4.
24 divided by 7
There's
would be
4.
4. So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, he's an attorney, you know. Yeah.
There's another attorney on this board now.
Something you wanted to say? Oh, okay.
What I
So
would
so I get to share the meeting now.
Yes, yes.
All right, I'm about to speak again. Go ahead. Come on.
No, I'm done.
Okay. I would suggest that these two gentlemen attend one of those HOA, POA meetings before they actually do it. It would be easier.
That'd probably be a good idea.
So when you see, and there'll be openings, I would suggest that you say, hey, I've got an opening in February. I want to go with Sue, and I'll watch her do it, and then sign up. You know what I mean? Okay. It'd be a lot easier for you. And because there's a script, but it's a lot of personality involved.
And this is just kind of as an FYI, I'm currently working with the HOA and New Villagers and POA to consolidate HOA Welcome and POA 101 into one meeting. So that might change in March. So January and February, we're going to keep our current schedule, but just know that that could change.
I have one additional thing. We have the committee orientations typically at the beginning of January for each committee. So if you're on ACC, that's one of the first meetings coming up, and Shannon will get you a committee orientation packet. I can't remember who said they were taking the ACC as they're going to be the liaison to that. But, you know, if who was it? Well, that's, oh, okay. So nobody actually took that for, I think we already assigned the January one though last year. Seems like we go all the way through the calendar and then January. We'll look. Because we'll have those orientations for the new committee members.
Okay, the other thing that I was thinking about was the date of the meetings. So they're currently the third Wednesday of every month. I guess I propose that we would continue that, because everybody in the village seems to know that that's our date. The other thing that I had asked Shannon to do was to pop up a slide of our 2021 board objectives. I thought maybe we could get a jump on the 2022. Oh, I took her by surprise. So, so bottom line is, what we'll do is we'll send out the 2021, of which I believe several of those will continue on into 2022. But also think about what you think some of the board objectives for 2022 need to be, and come prepared to talk about that in our January meeting, so we can get our objectives nailed down early in the year before too much of the year gets behind us. Okay. So I, just real quickly, the one that, number one was the action plan for CEO succession, so obviously that's going to continue. Development of the reserve funding and debt reduction strategies, that one will continue. And we'll assign, what we'll do in January's meeting is we'll assign the people that will be responsible for each of these. The number three was enhance and expand communication strategies, so we need to talk about what, if anything, needs to be included in 2022 for that, as well as the public relations and marketing strategies, and developing an educational program for property owners. So those are the five that were for this year, but we need to be thinking about what you would recommend, or what we would recommend as a board, be our objectives for 2022. With that, I think we can get out of here before 4:30. So unless anybody has anything else. Second. Oh, adjourn. Ooh, that felt good. Oh, that was close.